Call the regular meeting of the Pennington County Commission order. Agendas are in the back of the room, and if you desire to speak on any of the issues, I would recommend you use the speaker's request form and turn it in that Holly up here on your right, and please silence your cell phones. I'd ask Commissioner Roskinek to lead us in a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Roskinek. Next item is the review and approve agenda. We've been requested to pull item number 11. Is there a motion?
So move.
I got a motion to approve the agenda by pulling item number 11. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Holly.
Good morning, Commissioners. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of February 1st, 2022. Number 6 is to declare two 24/7 concept seating task chairs as surplus for the purpose of disposal as submitted by the Emergency Services Communications Center. Number 7 is approval for the Health and Human Services to submit a proposal for the Equitable Housing Demonstration Project. And finally, number 8 is to recognize and thank the volunteers for the month of January 2022. And at this time, I'd like you, Board, respectfully request you to pull number 5, please.
Is there any members of the public that wish to have any other items removed from the consent calendar? Any members of the commission desiring to have any other items removed?
Number 7. Just
And number
for
7.
Barry to tell us.
I take a motion to approve 6 and 8.
So move. Second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner LaCroix, second by Commissioner Lassiter to approve consent calendar items 6 and 8. And all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5.
Yes, Commissioners, we just need
Holly,
to,
hold on just a sec. 5 and 7.
Yeah, but I went to 5 first.
Okay, I thought you said 5 and 8 to pull, or just.
No, 6 and 8 is what we approved.
Sorry. Bad hearing. Sorry.
5.
no, Commissioners, we just wanted to have the board acknowledge the corrected set of minutes. There was a change to item R in the February 1st minutes. They were published correctly, but the version in the packet was not correct. So just want to make sure you acknowledge the corrected version.
Any questions?
Move to approve with the correction.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Hadcock, second by Commissioner Roskinek to approve item number 5. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7.
Barry, just an explanation for the public on what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're getting involved with the process of the housing collaboration.
Sure. Good morning, Barry Tice, the Director of Pennington County Health and Human Services. And I forwarded you our response to Macarthur Foundation. Part of this was we've always demonstrated in our community the ability to make projects happen. We have good collaborative partners. This just kind of came up. Macarthur had selected a few communities across the United States and said, what do you think you could do with this? It comes at a good time because we're working with the Bureau of Justice and the Sheriff's Office on the Rebound Reentry grant and boosting up our rebound program, giving it some a different look. And so the timing of this was really good for us just because of the Bureau of Justice grant and of course with the need for housing in our community. And so right now we partner with some private developers and a local foundation as well as court services, and we help individuals transition into what sometimes we consider temporary housing and then move into permanent housing using the Owens model. Macarthur Foundation provides this unique opportunity to look at the potential of program-related investments, working with, we've had conversations with Black Hills Area Community Foundation, Common Bond, Strategic Housing Trust Fund, to see if there's a way we might be able to do some longer-term leases on apartments. Look at, developing at this point is, there's not obviously enough money for that, but really exploring the options. The unique thing with this is they really give us 6 months if they select what we've put into the packet you have in front of you. If they like kind of the conversations that have happened to this point, then they'll select us to move forward. But until we move forward and have that 6 months to really pinpoint what we want to do, it's kind of broad at this point. We just wanted to make sure we connected with our main community partners on housing, including Pennington County Housing, to see what the options might be. And at this point, it's exploratory. We haven't asked for any funding over the next 6 months. Of course, Alex Purcell, our Assistant Director and Diversion Director, and Liz Hassett and I and others in the community will see what might be possible through this.
Thank you. Follow up. Why I like this is because it has the crisis care, mental health court pilot, some of the things, those who have disability with severe mental illness. I mean, we're opening a crisis stabilization, basically, unit, and this will work, I think, in the process, moving this forward, that we also can help them in the next step, not just, the first step in trying to help. So housing is huge for the mental health community, and finding people that will accept people with mental health sometimes, because there's a lot of things that go with that. So anything that's going to help the next step, like I said, we're putting a crisis stabilization unit. And I like what you're doing with the Owens apartments, so I'd hate to see those go away with the collaborative effort with the Care Campus. So I don't know if a lot of people know what you guys do there with the helping with the basically quality of life skills. It's huge. So the next step is the mental health part of that as well. So
Mr. Chair, I appreciate Commissioner Hadcock discussing I failed to mention the wraparound services, and that's really where Health and Human Services specialty comes into this. Is I always call it pretty superior case management services. They're constantly helping individuals with really remaining successful in our community, becoming successful, identifying barriers, and helping them overcome those. And so that's a huge piece to anything we do with housing, is not just setting somebody
that's
up
the bottom
there.
line. If you have case management with the people that you're serving, you're not just letting them go and, hey, here's a place to stay, I'll give you a couple $100 or I'll give you a weekly motel or a month, and then they're gone. So a lot of people, which is funny, some of these programs that are happening in Rapid City, they don't even know we have case management. And I think that's the number one thing when you're doing or helping people, is that follow through. Helping is great, but if there's no follow through, what happens when they're done is they go back to the old ways, they go back to the old system. When you can show them those quality of life areas, just knowing this from experience, it's huge. That's what Owens Apartments does, is they actually show you those life skills. You have a case manager that checks up on you and says, so what do? I don't know how to use a stove. And people think, well, what? You don't know how to use a stove? So you teach these life skills, and people think, well, these people are just slow. No, they didn't ever use a stove. Even the younger generation, a lot of times, they don't cook, they use a microwave. So, and vacuuming and these things that we just take for granted, you have to keep your room clean. These things with living in a space instead of outdoors for some people, or just, like I said, The huge part of this, and that's what I've always liked, is the case management, because it's that follow-through. So anything that we could move forward on any of these processes with more case management for life skills for people. I don't know how we do that in our community with other programs, but it's huge. So thank you, Barry, and your care campus, your people. I don't think everybody knows that you guys do case management, basically counseling for people that need their skills. So they don't just go in there and get help and see you later. So I'll keep repeating that over and over again because I don't, just from seeing it, you guys are amazing. How about that?
Thank you.
So,
Any further questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
I got a comment, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Oskinen.
Barry, I was really impressed with these letters of support. I mean, that is really impressive. Good letters and good support, and I think it's really a worthwhile cause. Thank you.
Commissioner LaCroy.
I'll echo what these people said, but I think, you know, we didn't get here by accident. It took a lot of hard work from all these people and you yourself after our meetings and the reentry program from way back. I mean, this has been a process for 12 years, to at least 15, and to get to where we are. You know, the care campus, the crisis care building, One Heart, it's all a wrap around. I mean, we're even getting community health over there. I mean, it is. So you've got some great partners, but it just didn't happen. You guys worked at it. And I just wanted to express my appreciation to you, Barry, and Sheriff and everybody else for the extra time and effort that they put in. Building these relationships aren't easy. And I know it took time and we're a better community for it. And that's why the Macarthur Foundation knows. They've been here, they've seen us, and they know you, and they're willing to invest in us. So.
And we're very fortunate with Liz Hassett, of course,
I was
helping
gonna
us
say.
manage these grants, because
she doesn't do anything, I don't think. I think she just sits in her office.
Is there a motion to approve item 7?
Thank you,
So
Liz.
move.
Second.
I got a motion and a second.
I appreciate it.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Barry.
Thank you, guys.
Item number 9, appointment of Paul Paulson to the Weed and Pest Board. I understand Mr. Paulson is unable to be in attendance today, but he's been serving on that for a number of years. Would like to continue. Scott Guffey has given high regards to Mr. Paulson's work, and so I would recommend that we appoint Mr. Paulson to the Weed and Pest Board for 3-year term representing Unit 3.
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any public comment? Any other comment from the commission? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Items from the auditor.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Moeller, Pennington
Hold
County
on,
Auditor.
Cindy, hold on one second. Tell us.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cindy Moeller, Pennington County Auditor. Per SDCL 7810, Pennington County Commissioners at the regular meeting in February are to change the boundary lines, of course, going by the last census that was done in 2020. And so today what we're looking at is the 3 proposed maps. And hopefully there is one of those that you will settle on today, since it does need to be done in February. And then along with that, there is a resolution that will be coming in March that will lay out all of the boundaries of the commission districts and all of the voting precincts, and we're waiting on the city for their precincts, but we wanted to bring it forward just in one resolution, and then we will get it published as per the state statute.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Adcock.
I'll make a motion for proposed option 2. And then a follow-up if I get a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for item 2. Commissioner Adcock.
So I spent a couple hours on this last night, just looking, and then also thinking where Rapid City's moving. I also looked at the city precincts or wards where they're moving. And a lot of like Ward 2 that I was in is moving to the east. I see that's kind of where our growth, I think, purple, yellow, and me is gonna start going east. And the line through Mount Rushmore Road made more sense on the major arterials. So when you follow those major arterials, it seemed to split them right at them at like 8th Street and East Omaha. And I like having some of the north side in mind, as well as the south, so I get a little bit of everything. Lloyd seems to be stretching across in different areas, same with Travis. Travis is the only one, and Ron seems to be and probably will stay around the bottom area of our maps for a while. So, like I said, instead of switching the map every time, you're gonna follow, to me, you're gonna follow a lot of those major arterial areas or on your precincts that made sense for growth. How about that? So when I overlaid them several times, it just seemed like listening to the city, where we're going with our growth, that it made more sense in two.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek.
And I like 2, but I would prefer 3, and the reason why is because District 1 just basically encompasses the majority of the Black Hills National Forest. It's a very rural district, and the only urban area in that would be Precinct 5-3, which gives me some urban overlay. And if you take 5-3 out of my district, then I have no connection with anything urban relative to Rapid City. I am totally going to be rural in nature, so 3 would give me a little more balance.
Any other commission comments? I actually prefer 3 too, in addition. I could also live with 2 without a lot of difficulty, so. Understand what Commissioner Roskinek is saying on that 5-3 for that District 1.
So, sir,
Commissioner Adcock.
if you look at it, he gets the same in 3 as he does 2. On where
5-3
he's
is
talking
in
about?
both? 5-3 is in both?
Yeah, if you look at the square that he's talking about, it's also in 2 and 3. Did you see that, Ron?
Well, enchantment or go, that one section, I think.
But that goes to Gary, Ron, or
Pardon me?
Ron, Lloyd?
You know,
does.
I can't tell from these pictures, but from the maps in the back, it seemed the difference between 1 and 2, or 2 and 3 was that enchantment area, wasn't it?
That's, yes.
Yeah, so
And
that was
Ron's
the
is about the
difference.
same.
Myself, I was struggling with this. I'd like to go with 1, just because the number wise, I thought it was all fair, but I understand, that's why I come today and to listen to your guys' decision on 2 or 3, because I was kind of looking at it. I was leaning more towards 2, but I mean, I wanted to listen to see some of the reasons why, because I'm strictly trying to go by the numbers. And I think you did a good job on all of them as far as figuring out where the cutoff for the elections and that type of thing. But I thought our goal was not to really look for the future 10 years. As we're supposed to set it up for this one, and then 10 years we do it again.
That is correct.
That was my thoughts on it. But
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
I'll settle for 2. I ran to support people, and if it's in 2, option 3, don't make no difference. I'll do my job no matter how that district's laid out, so I'll support Deb with option 2.
Further discussion? Any public discussion on this? If not, the motion is to move to approve map proposal number 2 as the 2020 decennial revision of commission districts. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye?
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item B.
The next item that we have before you is a new retail on-sale liquor license with Sunday sales for R&J LLC. And this was actually continued from August, I believe. I think there were some questions on the structure and what was available there. And I did not go back and listen to the meeting to see what that discussion was. I have to apologize for that. I probably should have done that. I don't know if the applicant is here or if planning and zoning has any comments on it. It doesn't look like the sheriff's office had any issues with it.
I think the discussion going back to when it was previously up was, that there was not any facility, for use for the on-sale license at that time. So, and I don't know if that has changed. I understand it has not. Brittany?
I was going to say, I don't know.
Brittany.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. The applicant has gotten an approved conditional use permit for the wedding venue and event center, which would be the structure that would have the liquor sales. He did get his building plans developed. They were approved by our fire administrator. He did come into the office to submit his building permit. He could not submit his building permit because his contractor was not licensed. So his contractor is working through the licensing procedure, but he does have building plans. They have been approved. They've gone through the fire department and the fire marshal's office, and his CUP for the structure has been approved. So that's the update from last time. None of those were in place at the prior meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy?
move for approval.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second for approval. Any public comment? Any further comment or questions from the commission? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Opposed? Motion is 4-1. Drew's voting against.
Okay.
Motion carried.
Approved.
Item number 12. Items from the building and grounds.
Good morning. Mike Cool, Director of Buildings and Grounds. As you are aware, the crisis stabilization unit construction project is underway. Black Hills Power is seeking an easement for that property, as well as a grade agreement, which basically says that the grades will be within 6 inches of the indicated locations. That's something that we will coordinate through RCS construction. Location of this easement will be on the northeast corner of the construction site right now, just off of the alley. Of course, power is needed for any new construction, so therefore the need for this. In the past, through past reviews, the State's Attorney's Office has determined that this is not a document that I should sign. Therefore, I'm bringing it to the Commission to sign because it is granting interest in property that's owned by the county.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy?
move to authorize the chair's signature to the Black Hills Power, Inc. electric easement, underground, and grade agreement documents for Pennington County Crisis Stabilization Project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any public comment? Back to the commission. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, Mike.
Last summer, the board approved building committee bylaws that further define the building committee's role in facility projects. Part of that, through part of that process, we defined a timeline for project submissions, and this, as part of that document, a timeline for doing project submissions was defined. The submission process itself was something that the Buildings and Grounds has worked through, and we've executed this first round of doing this. The idea behind this right now is that this is something that we can do like on an annual basis. So if there's needs available for departments, they have something available, they can submit for a project request. each year, and that can be evaluated based on funding availability. Right, right now, that timeline was, we sent out a request for projects in October, and then we were going to evaluate through from January, or possibly up to March. They, the committee made a decision, some decisions early on in January, so that's part of the purpose of this report. This is part of a two-pronged approach to trying to address facility needs projects, this annual submittal process, as well as a facility needs evaluation. That's currently underway through BKV Group. They are the consultants that did our facilities master plan in 2010. So they already had a basis in our facilities and have an understanding from that. So that's something that's currently moving forward. They've already been on site doing interviews. We've also filled out surveys. I'd like to thank all the departments that have contributed a lot of information so far to that. The committee recommended the process defined by Buildings and Grounds. We had a couple of scoring matrices we ran projects through. We provided 6 projects we recommended for consideration to the board or to the building committee. 2 that didn't make that cut were further discussed by the building committee, and they made a convincing argument they should be included as well. So the board, essentially 7 projects have been voted to move forward, and it's been left to Buildings and Grounds to figure out priority and scheduling of these projects. Some of these could be impacted by this facility needs assessment as we move forward. That has an impact on how we execute. Of course, 7 more additional projects on here has to be something that's coordinated and staged as we execute them. Currently, the building committee has determined that because of the number of projects available, we should probably set a reserve limit of $1 million in the accumulated building fund. Right now, that's the only fund that's is recognized by the building committee to fund these projects. That leaves about approximately $1.3 million to execute these projects. So the projects that have been recommended, there are 7 projects that have been recommended to move forward. We included the jail infrastructure project in the matrix to help us see how that all worked relative to that. But because that project has other funding opportunities and it's of a completely different scale than all of these, that one will be addressed at a later date. So right now, there are 7 projects that have been recommended to move forward, and I'll just name those, and this is the order of priority that Buildings and Grounds has established at this time. Public safety buildings, secure lobby and remodel, State's Attorney Office renovation, 1922 tunnel replacement design. That would just be the design part of that project. Courthouse Annex 3rd floor conference room build out, mailroom relocation administration building, Courthouse Annex 2nd floor courtroom build out, and public defender additional offices. Now, to give some perspective on the priorities that we've established, things like the mailroom is an example of a facilities needs assessment we already know through some of the work that's been completed thus far. We probably have at least 3 competing interests for the area that we thought we might put that in that seem to need to be coordinated. So that's a little bit further down on the list. Public defender has a solution at this time, so that's why they're at the bottom of the list right now. Right now, my intention is that we're going to take this probably a project at a time, bring them back for recommendations as we can execute them. Probably trying to tackle 2 or 3 of them at a time. Right, the project that's up next will be our first recommendation, which is the public safety building lobby. Any questions that I could answer?
Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy.
Mike, I appreciate this. You know, I first attended the meeting last week. It's been quite a while, but I mean, getting these prioritized and bringing them forward to the commission helps us understand where we're at. I mean, like the courthouse tunnel replacement design. I mean, that's going to be a big project, but we have to do the design. And we know, just like with the infrastructure of the jail, we're probably going to have to do some bonding in order to fix, not only do everything from the needs assessment and fix stuff that we got going on, but it's best to do it all at once and try. So, but it's good to know, see these and have them lined up and give the commission an idea of what's happening out there, because a lot of times we don't know a lot of the stuff that's happening in your world. So I appreciate this list of stuff.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would like to add onto your comments is as a facility, as part of our facility needs assessment, we're going to look at different options for how do we solve the needs that are recognized through this analysis. So there'll be a number of things that will also lead into discussions about timelines of how do we try and tackle some of these things. We're already having some discussions about how do we finance some of this stuff aside for potential money that's available for projects like the jail or something. So those are all ongoing discussions as well.
Thanks.
This is intended to be an informational update for you guys, but
Any further questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Roskinick.
Say, Mike, our project rating system that we kind of formulated in the last year, does that seem to be helping going forward with what projects we think we need to identify as most important?
I think it will overall. You know, our initial screen, which is based on the bylaws, is a very helpful one. The secondary one to help try and screen further one is basically buildings and grounds trying to assess what can fit and thing. And that one's not as well defined. It's intended though to provide a little more, try and provide a little more separation for recognizing projects though.
Thank you.
Okay.
Here.
Any further? Commissioner Hadcock.
Thank you, sir. So is there any changes or meaning things that you'd like to change on the bylaws that would be more helpful? Because we did that just to see kind of how it'd work. I remember as a board and with Ms. Hawley, is there anything that needs to be different that would make it more successful?
I think that I'd like us to start executing some of this stuff and see how this carries out a little bit more before
See
we
what
do that. But
change.
yes, I think it'll be an ongoing developing thing that we'll have to adjust.
Well, and I agree. I just didn't know at this time, you know.
At this time, I can't tell you that I see that there are necessarily things. I think it's helped us get through this initial one, and this was starting from zero, so it's
Yeah.
done a pretty good job of moving us forward.
Thank you. I just didn't know if you noticed anything that could be, you know, better on that would.
There are probably some tweaks that we can make, but
Right
I
now.
guess I'm not prepared to try and talk about those right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
I think we're prepared to go on to 12C.
This is a project that I'm having Kevin work on, so I'm gonna let him talk about it initially here, and I'll stay up here to back him up on this, and go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, so Kevin Burton, Senior Project Manager with Buildings and Grounds. This project initiated a couple of years ago. Police Department and Sheriff's Office came together and had some concerns about the public walking into the public safety building, being able to go anywhere throughout the building. Buildings and Grounds hired some preliminary investigation and some project planning into that with co-op architecture to see if we can formulate a scope of work and how to best address that situation. So co-op put together a preliminary plan, preliminary budget for that, presented that early last year. It secures the lobby area with hardened walls so that it creates some bulletproof safety there. It relocates the public windows, the row office, to the front of the building, so you actually have two stations that will greet public as they come in. What that does is it closes off the elevators from the public being able to access anywhere else in the building. Unfortunately, it also closes off the public restroom. So anybody coming in that would have that need, we're looking at utilizing those old restroom spaces as new office space and relocating some restrooms to that lobby. And instead of going with gang-type restrooms, they would be more single-use restrooms up front because there's not a huge demand for that. So they can be a lot smaller. The public safety building is pretty much outgrowing the need. So the additional offices on the main floor are helpful when we remove those bathrooms. So we're before you today to advance that design and move it into the next stages so that we can bid this project out. So we're asking for approval of the
We do, sorry, Kevin. We do need, as this is a building committee recommendation, so it requires 2 meetings for action. So will be our initial presentation to you for this. And I am also seeking authorization for design and administration decision-making authority and signing applications, documents, and necessary agreements with expenditure authority up to $50,000 as Pennington County's representative.
Chairman.
Could you be bringing those motions back for the next meeting? Is that what?
We will bring it back at the next meeting with motions based on any comments that you may have.
Commissioner Edgar.
And just so the public knows, city pays half of this
That's
project.
correct.
So that way, city and county work together as a team in that building, so we appreciate that.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
so Mike, did you have any sticker shock when you found out that difference of 465,808?
We have sticker shock every day from the cost of things. So,
Lots of stickers?
yes.
Any further questions, comments?
Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Kevin, thanks for bringing up that update on this. I mean, I go to several meetings at the public safety meeting quite often, and you're right. I mean, you just kind of walk in and you can do whatever. The way you just explained how it's going to be is to have a front desk and block it off, I think is an upgrade. And as Deb said, this is a project of city and county working together, and it's a shared cost expense. And I think the safety part of it is important. So I appreciate the update and some of the plans that you were talking about. Helps understand what's going on. So,
Further questions, comments? I would just suggest to the commission that as you read through this, we'll be coming back at our meeting in 2 weeks. If you do have questions on it in the meantime, I would suggest you maybe reach out to either Kevin or Mike to try to get an answer to those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 13, Shannon. Items from equalization.
Morning, Commissioners. Shannon Rittberger, Director of Equalization. You have a bunch of abatement requests before you, but I'd ask that you split it into 2 actions. The first abatement application comes from the property owner. The rest of them come from my office. And I don't know if the property owner is here.
Yes.
Okay, property owner's here. His abatement request is for disabled veterans exemption. The law states that application has to be received by a deadline, but it also says that if the applicant misses the deadline, he can ask the commission for an abatement. I would suggest maybe he have some comments. My only comment to it is that although the law allows an abatement, I ask that you deny the abatement to hold the deadline. And I say that every time we get one of these.
This is Mr. Walls. Come forward. So, Mr. Walls, I understand you've asked for the abatement. You missed the deadline, basically because of illness. Was your reason that was given?
Uh, During the time I moved up here was during COVID, first phase. And because of the COVID, I had a terrible time finding out what was available, what the deadlines even were. By the time I got the VA, I have not been able to even get a hold of the county VA up here at all. I've been working through the state to get the proper paperwork so when I could apply for it, I would have everything in place to do it all at one time. I missed by 30 days. It was just because of all that COVID mess going on. Everything had been locked down. It was difficult to get answers. Not even bankers or anybody else around here even knew it existed. I had to do a lot of research to even find where to get stuff.
So, Shannon, I understand he qualified for everything. It was just simply because of the lateness.
Yeah, and in fact, the law says if the applicant would otherwise have qualified but missed the deadline.
Okay,
He can
okay.
request an abatement. If you don't qualify, there's no question.
Sure. Any comments, questions by the commission?
I got one question, Mr. Chair. Shannon, the best that you can remember, have we ever approved something like this? Because I'm kind of leaning that direction.
I don't think we ever have.
Yes.
I don't think you ever have, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Sorry, Chair.
Commissioner Hadgar.
Actually, we have for, Ron Roskinek hasn't, but when we've done that with one of our vets, talking $2,033 to help a veteran that just moved here, didn't know some of the process. Could see if he was here 10 years or something and these circumstances, but we have done this before, and it was for a veteran on one of his homes that he got help with, so.
Okay. Further questions, comments?
Well, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Roskinek to approve and a second by Commissioner Hadcock. Any public comment in regard to this? Seeing none, back to the commission. Any further questions, comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve the abatement indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Mr.
your
Wallace.
service,
Thank you.
Mr. Waltman. We appreciate you.
The next six are coming from your office, Shannon.
The rest of them come from my office. They're typical this time of year. House burned down, a government entity purchase a property. They're saved up until the tax bill's printed, and we deal with all of those this time of year. There's various reasons. We've been doing this for a couple of meetings now. They're coming back from the cities where they have to go to first. If you'll take action on these, I just have one quick comment afterwards.
Okay?
Separate or together, sir?
Pardon?
You want it separate or together? All together?
I think we can do them all together. I don't see any reason why we can't.
Motion to approve.
I've got a motion to approve items 2 through 7 abatements. Is there a second?
Second.
Don't have to read
Further
through.
discussion? Commissioner LaCroix? Nothing?
Oh, I was just looking, do we have to read through every parcel legal description, or is just approving it okay?
I don't care.
Well, this is a pretty long
I was
paragraph.
gonna say, Lord, you're asking him, that's not, he's just gonna like, whatever.
My understanding is they need to be read into the record.
Okay,
Mr.
we
Chair,
can do that. Commissioner Roskinek?
one question, Shannon, on a lot of these parcels, you got a parcel ID number. And when I go to look those parcels up, I can't find, those parcels aren't coming up on Rapid Maps. So I'm assuming these parcels were purchased for,
If the parcel's not coming up on Rapid Map, it's most likely because it's been replatted and that parcel doesn't exist. It's a parcel from a previous year, and Rapid Map is current.
but the parcels went from private ownership to public ownership. So what was the purpose of the transfer? Drainage,
All kinds of reasons. Several of them are Ellsworth Development Authority.
okay,
Purchasing a property. Sometimes one of the cities will purchase something and I don't even know why.
okay,
But as long as it's owned by an exempt entity, it's exempt from taxes.
okay. That was just something that I pondered when I was looking at all these.
Okay, so the motion should read, which was made by Commissioner Hadcock, abatements for Douglas Zog, parcel number 38,781, the amount of $1,580.14. Ellsworth Development, parcel 38,902, in the amount of $3,270.44. City of Box Elder, two parcels in the amount of $1,356.78. Next one is Jonathan Eisinger, parcel 8005602, in the amount of $395.26. Next item is Northwest Engineering, parcel 8009624, in the amount of $105.76. And the last ones are City of Rapid City, 14 parcels, in the amount of $8,899.08. Any further discussion? I don't remember. Did I ask for public comment? Seeing none, back to the commission. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Shannon.
May I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
No. Just kidding.
A lot of these abatements are for buildings that burn down. One of the reasons for an abatement is the structure no longer exists. So we create a lot of these abatements from my office when a building burns down. We don't wait for the property owner to come ask for the abatement. My office has worked closely with fire coordinator, Jerome and Denny, and they're at most of the fires, so we get those fire reports and we create this. Jerome and I have carried this a step further. He has acquired a pamphlet from FEMA, I think, that advises a property owner on what to do if your property burns, if your house burns down, the things you should be thinking about. I created a label and stuck it in there, and it says, call your county assessor if a building burns down. And I gave the phone number for my office as well as the counties surrounding us. We stuck it in that brochure, and fire departments in Pennington County will be passing those out when they're at a structure fire or and maybe another fire. But it's just one step further in case we don't know about a building that burns down, or if it happens in an adjacent county where Pennington County Fire Department might have gone to, and it's not Pennington County Assessor's Office, we've still got those other contacts, just to try to eliminate that tax to keep going into the future on a building that doesn't exist.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hadcock.
I have to say something nice to Shannon. It's going to be
It's
hard.
about time.
You can do it.
I might have to second this one, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon, because we did have a building that burned down, and you guys were on top of it. I did call you later, but you guys already had that done. So, and then the step further is even better to help the surrounding areas and just people what to do after their fire. So, thank you to Jerome and you for doing something kind. Now, Shannon doesn't do a lot of kind things, I'm just telling you. But, no, very efficient office. And I do appreciate Shannon. It's just nice to give him a little bit of stuff. So,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek?
So Shannon, this gentleman missed a deadline relative to his benefit, being a veteran, whatever. Owner occupancy, when was the deadline for that? Because I assume we're going to get some of those coming forward where somebody missed the deadline and they wanted to.
The law doesn't allow an abatement for missing the deadline for owner occupied. So the deadline for owner occupied is March 15th. You have to own and occupy the property as your principal residence on November 1st, but you have until November 15th after assessment notices are mailed to apply for the owner occupied. So you can get your assessment notice and it says not owner occupied, you still have some time to apply.
That was my question, just that time frame that they got some people miss it and they don't qualify and they come back and
Yeah, but the law doesn't allow that.
I
For
understand,
the
yeah.
veterans exemption, the law specifically says the property owner can request it.
Okay, anything further? Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Item 14, items from Human Resources. John.
Morning, Commissioners. John Morrow, Pennington County Human Resources. So the item I have before you today is actually creation, of a new position within the State's Attorney's Office. And this would actually be a really important support position, a senior attorney position, but it would be the Assistant Chief Deputy State's Attorney. What we're asking is to create this position. It will not add to the headcount within the office, but will help those that are in the chief deputy state's attorney positions by taking some of the workload and easing their duties. You'll notice in the packet, I also included the DBM listing for all the positions, and you'll see this is, again, a senior level position within that office. So the motion before you today is to add that position to the DBM listing, and then again to authorize Human Resources to update that position listing.
Chairman,
Commissioner Adcock.
I guess I move to approve the addition of this Assistant Chief Deputy Attorney. So you're not granting another FTE, you're just moving a position? Because that sounds like you're moving to have another position besides.
No, and in the upper portion of that memo, it states that this does not add to the headcount. It's not a new FTE. It's the
Right.
creation of a senior level position within the department for promotion purposes.
Okay, I guess I need to say that it's not, I move to approve the addition of instead of the position change or something. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if you read that later, would it say that you're adding an up? Because
I think you could add to your language, Commissioner Hadcock, simply inserting in there, not designed to add additional personnel.
yeah, this is not additional FTE. This is just in addition, meaning to job description or responsibility, something like that.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek.
John, I appreciate Mark taking the time to sit with each one of us commissioners and explain the importance of this to his department with the growing crime rates and the need for this, this motion. So I do appreciate Mark. It helps me a lot when we can sit down and spend a half an hour and understand why this is needed.
You bet.
So.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
Go ahead,
Hadcock.
Travis. Oh,
did I hear
sorry.
a second on that
No,
motion?
I was just
Because I was
gonna-
about to second it if you didn't. That's all I wanted to clarify.
Okay,
I don't think I even have a motion at this point in time.
okay,
Deb did make a motion.
I didn't.
You didn't? Oh.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I
No.
heard you say, yeah,
I
you
thought
said my
you did.
motion
Oh, she
would
was
be.
reading from
I was
the
reading.
information.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Trying to
wasn't,
clarify.
sorry, I apologize. And I didn't know this because, I wasn't called on this issue, so, I don't know about it, so, I keep seeing additions to different, positions and more money for different positions right now. And I'd like to see, kind of like I had with the sheriff's office, I'd like to see that total of changes this year of what we've done to our budget. Does that make sense? On positions, job descriptions, where we're at on our budget on those changes. The 1.25 that we're giving, that shouldn't be much change, right? Because we're gonna do it anyway on the steps. I'd like to see our budget before we keep adding, I need a chief, deputy, or I need this. I'm not against this in one sense, but the other, I think some of this needs to come during budget on some of these job description changes and some of these amounts. So, seems simple to add one position, but did you change any other job descriptions and how much have you changed in your budgets? I'd kind of like to see that. And if it isn't significant, it's pretty a no-brainer on it, but if you just keep adding to it, some of our budget constraints are gonna be coming up. Maybe it's gonna be good this year, maybe it's not gonna be good, property tax might be up. I've never ran my business on what coulda, shoulda, woulda. I'd like to see the numbers before I make a decision. That's my bottom line, so.
John, based on what Commissioner Adcock is requesting between you and the county auditor, can you provide us an update as to how this has been, the things we've done so far this year, how this has adjusted our budget?
I would have to defer to the auditor for that, sir. I don't have access to that data,
Okay,
nor can I calculate any of those.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner LaCroix.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
Move to approve the addition of Assistant Chief Deputy State's Attorney position, just the position, in the State's Attorney's Office at a DBM rating of D62 40.84 an hour, and to update the position listing which is on file. So I think it's just saying for the position, not adding a new FTE.
Okay,
There a second?
I'll second it then.
Got a motion and a second.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Back to the commission. Any further comment? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Holly, could you work with Cindy to see if we can come up with numbers as requested by Commissioner Adcock? Thank you.
Chairman,
Commissioner Adcock.
no privilege. Too, Holly, just see where our budget's at on a bunch of, the different departments and see the changes. Kind of like an update of what we did last year and how's it continuing into our budget this year. That way, when you have to make decisions on other things in the future, we kind of know we're on track or we're not. Thank you, Gary.
Okay. Items from public defender, Eric Witcher.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Witcher, Public Defender. We are requesting authorization to purchase a refrigerator for the satellite office. We can't buy one of those as regular equipment, and so we just need a motion or approval from the board. We found several refrigerators under that $600 value. They're pretty bare bones.
So, Chairman,
So, Commissioner Adcock.
have we done this in other areas, or how do they get fridges and stuff, Holly, for their departments? Since we can't do certain things.
Yeah, it's outside of the purchasing policy, and what happens is either one person in the office, like the department head, will pay for it, or it will come out of the employee funds that each employee contributes to and gets purchased that way.
Okay, because we don't do this for other departments?
No.
Okay.
So, Eric, as I read this caught me a little bit by surprise. Not necessarily the refrigerator, but I didn't realize that you already had acquired a satellite office. I know that we discussed that and provided some dollars for that during our budgeting session. And I may simply have missed it, but I didn't realize you had acquired a satellite office.
Yes, we did. We've rented a satellite office that was budgeted for 2022, so we do have a satellite office now. So we will be, so yes,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
Eric, that office that that 343 Quincy Street, that's a number of condo or suites or whatever. So did you just get one suite?
yes, one suite.
How many square feet is that? Or
Oh,
ballpark?
I think it's about 1,500 square feet.
Well, it's close to this facility, so, that's a good thing.
And we had planned to do just what Holly had said, and we were advised that other departments have done this, so that's why we brought it forward.
On the
So-
refrigerator?
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm,
I don't think so, Eric.
Move to deny.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to deny the purchase of a refrigerator. Any further comment?
Come to me later and I'll give you some money. I really can't support
All
this neither.
those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
great, thank you.
Item 16, Holly Hennies.
All right, Commissioners, this is in relation to the tax deed property from the last board meeting that the commission decided to grant and move forward with disposal. Went back and reviewed statutes, and there were two pieces that I did miss. So the first motion that I'm requesting of the board today is the motion to declare surplus the tax deed property parcel 27437 for the purpose of sale.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comments? Any further discussion by the commission? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the second piece of that is statute dictates that the board is to identify the 3 real property owners in order to complete the appraisal report that is required. So I have made contact with 3 individuals that qualify, and they are willing to provide their services. So the second motion I would request today would be move to appoint Lori Wager, Suzanne White, and Amber Orline as the 3 real property owners pursuant to SDCL 6-13-2, who will complete and file the appraisal report for the tax deed property.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Roskinek.
Well, being that's what I do for a living, I got a couple questions. You said qualified, so what do they need to do to be qualified?
In statute, the only qualification is that they are a real property owner within our jurisdiction.
And when they're done with the appraisal, is there a process for that to be reviewed?
No, sir.
Okay.
What I do is give them the tax deed report that comes from the equalization office, and also provide them with comparable sales that have been compiled from the equalization
Oh,
office.
so you're using some market evidence. That was,
We absolutely give
okay, that
them
was my
market
question.
data. They have to have something to go off of.
Okay.
So, in all fairness, we felt that that was appropriate, that they get that data. And then the 3 of them meet on site at the property and determine what they feel is the appropriate dollar.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further from the commission? I don't have a motion yet.
I will so move to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item C.
All right, this is the continuation from the last meeting on scheduling the planning workshops. Since we're kind of behind schedule this year, I would propose, after looking at everybody's schedule, that we just do 1 planning session this year and schedule it on the afternoon of Thursday, April 7th, starting at 1 p.m. That seemed to work best, at least to my knowledge, with everybody's schedules.
Discussion
Mr.
or
Chair.
motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I actually am in the process of scheduling an event that will take me out of the area, the 6th and 7th. Well, I'll be in the area, but it'll take me out of doing anything in the commission for the 6th and 7th. So that would be a bad day for me. We haven't got the finals of the contract yet, but that's the day we're working, and it works quite well for everybody who's flying in out of town, so.
Is there any other dates suggested?
That far out, I can make anything work.
Sunday. Just kidding.
And if you want me to look out into July, I can come back again at the next commission meeting and try and go out into July and just do 1.
Well, sounds like April 7th worked for me, but
Travis.
take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on bringing in a conference here for a workshop, so that's the reason why.
What's the date that works? And maybe Ron, Lloyd, yours is good. Gary, you're okay with some of that? Depends on when it is.
I mean, I know we get Board of Equalization starting after that, but we didn't have anything planned on the 21st, so if we still want to do it that early,
What's the 21st? What day of the week?
Thursday.
that's a Thursday.
How about you,
That's
Holly?
what's gonna hit us is board equalization's gonna eat
Yeah,
up. That's really gonna eat
yeah.
up some of our person.
I think Gary was the one that wasn't available on the 21st.
About May 25th.
Didn't you have?
May,
That's a
May
Wednesday.
25th?
That's
Yeah.
Deb works Wednesdays.
Okay.
Not anymore.
I think you gotta look at July.
I'm good on Wednesdays. I switched my schedule, you guys, so only because too, I have weed and pest and I missed a lot of
You're
those
good with what?
Wednesdays now.
Oh,
I
okay,
switched my schedule.
okay. So you're saying May 25th would work for you?
Hmm?
Would it work for the rest of the commission?
I believe so. And I'm plugging it on my calendar if we say yes.
Ron and Lloyd?
Yep,
Yep.
25th.
I have
May
a dental
25th,
appointment, but I can change it. Does that work, Holly?
I believe so at this time. I show Elevate and a department head meeting, but we can take care of those. Do you want to start at 9 in the morning?
You originally
I
was thinking
could actually
1.
start earlier now.
Yeah, it's,
8's good. Anybody have an 8 o'clock problem?
huh?
Two ag people?
I could probably make it.
Ron, you okay getting here by 8?
Yeah, it's fine.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of starting at 8 a.m. on May 25th, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Sounds good. Thank you.
1 second here. I will get this changed to my calendar. So it's there. Okay. Thank you, Holly. Next item we have is the County Compensation Committee. Commissioner Hancock.
I was one of those, at first that wasn't in favor of the compensation committee, but we have a lot of, with Gallagher being new. Okay, Lloyd wanted it, but I helped absorb it. Because we had a HR, director, and I thought with Gallagher and some other things that we really didn't need a compensation committee at that point, but with all the stuff with retention and adequate salary policies and different stuff like that, I think, and I know I was wrong, so I'm gonna admit it. I think through the communication and building a little bit more consensus that the compensation committee at this point would be needed. So to put it back, into, a committee and then have with John, and department, or chair and maybe Miss Holly, figuring out what that needs to look like for the bylaws, if we need to change any, because of the different, things that are happening in our departments and in Pennington County right now. I think it should be put back into effect.
For the comment.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy.
I kind of accepted defeat last time. I think we was brought up. I'm not quite sure, we pretty much kind of did transfer it over to the department head meetings to work out some of the details. When we brought this up last time, I mean, there was some big discussion on why they didn't want it. I don't mean to quote you, Deb, but one was I think it was the HR shouldn't, part of the reason why he didn't like the committee was he had to present stuff that was probably something that he didn't agree with, but it was a vote, and that's the way it is. I agree with the committee, because when I first come on the commission, I sat in on it because Janet made me. But I mean, I actually learned a lot, and I seen they did a lot of debating and working on what needed to be done, and I thought it was fruitful myself. But at some point, they decided not to do it again. I think we are at that point where it probably needs to go again. When we have some of the stuff that we got keep coming forward, and the things that just happened in our community with everything shooting up, I think it probably is a good idea. Now, what form it needs to be at, I'm not sure. I think you're requesting to see the bylaws and
Have-
so forth, and I think that's probably a good idea before we get started. But yeah, I think to see the bylaws and kind of look through that and review those.
We're just trying to build that consensus back and then not have it just in department head, have it reviewed, and then hit the department heads, I think, would be a little bit easier just from watching some of the stuff. With department heads, you do a really good job, Miss Holly. But, a lot of people I see are not speaking at those meetings, for department heads and some of that. And maybe, with Cindy's help, I think some of that stuff needs to be on budget too. So when we're doing salaries and retention and different stuff, that makes a huge difference. And I think more people, okay, I was wrong, build consensus in a committee, and it could be a recommending body. So John can say, I was voted out 5-3 on this. I think it should be a recommending body and just more of a communication and consensus building in a certain extent, so people can vet it a little bit more before it even comes to department head. Because I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong with your department head, Holly, because you do a wonderful job. I just think that one step before where I was wrong, it's some huge things with retention and adequate salary policies that need to be vetted a lot more than I thought. And no, Janice didn't make me go to the committee. I honestly, at that time, figured, how many committees do you need to be able to make a policy change through HR? But these are pretty huge things for John to take on and get the heck beat out of him a lot. Some of that maybe can be behind the scenes, and then he actually knows what they're thinking before you hit the next step, so.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy.
just one comment. One of the reasons why I brought this up way earlier, it's part of the bill or the compensation committee. If I remember right, the bylaws, we had a couple of people that were not in the upper management who attended the meetings. And to me, that helped express to the rest that you're getting their input and so forth into it. Plus, they go back into the workplace and express that, yes, we looked at this and why they did what they did, if I remember right. But I'd probably suggest at the next meeting reviewing the bylaws.
This is just for discussion.
Yeah, for discussion.
So as I understand it, then you're asking Holly to bring back the bylaws for our preview, and
That would be my guess at this point.
Do we have to make a
That gives the
motion?
commission time to think about it over the next 2 weeks, talk to the departments, and plus we get it and review it, and then have a better discussion at our next meeting.
I don't think it's necessary to do a motion at this point in time. I think that can be done later. But I think there probably needs to be more discussion on it, bringing the bylaws forward, even potentially if you could send those to us in the meantime so that we could have some time to review those.
Do we have any department heads that like to speak on it or have any suggestions? Also, maybe can send some stuff to Holly on the compensation committee.
Any department heads wish to speak on it? See quite a few jumping up. Okay. Holly, bring forth the bylaws so that we have an opportunity to look at those, and we'll put it back on the agenda for next meeting. Okay? Next item is approval of vouchers.
Move to approve vouchers for the Price LLC in the amount of $3,600.
I abstain.
I've got a motion by Commissioner LaCroy, second by Commissioner Lassiter. Commissioner Hadcock is abstaining on this vote. All those in favor of that motion in the amount of $3,600 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, or opposed? Motion carried 4-0 with Commissioner Hadcock abstaining. I need another motion then to approve the remaining vouchers in the amount of $1,813,430.65.
So moved.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 19, legislative session. There's any number of bills that are being discussed with hearings in the legislative session that could have an impact on counties. If there's any in particular that somebody would like information on, I know the 1203, one that was of concern, has been killed at this point in time. That was the one that would require a separate public hearing by the government entity relative to increase in property taxes. I think the legislature was pretty well convinced that, everybody holds their proper budget hearings, and this would have just been another cost onto the taxpayers, the property taxpayers, for holding additional hearings on it. Anything else that anybody would like?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskin.
these are ones that I followed, or I don't know where they're at, but when this whole thing started, these were the ones that caught my eye. House Bill 1168, that would be an act to eliminate property tax for certain seniors.
Yeah.
House Bill 1039, that would be an act to provide for the assessment of certain ag land as non-crop land. We've talked a little bit about that one, but I'd like to see how much traction that one's got going forward.
That has been approved in the House, now moving to the Senate.
Okay. House Bill 1053, an act to authorize counties to issue bonds for certain expenditures funded by a gross receipt tax.
That is, let's see here. I got to think if that's, it's,
Passed out of House taxation and is on the way to the House floor.
yeah.
House Bill 1253, an act to provide property assessment, freeze and reduction of property assessment for certain seniors, and to revise the qualifications for a property tax exemption.
What was the number on that one?
1253.
House Bill 1253.
Where's that at, Holly?
That one has made it through the House on a vote of 45 to 19 and has now been referred to Senate taxation.
And I know that Janet Saylor has expressed opposition to that, and I have made our lobbyists aware that it's not favorable for Pennington County.
House Bill 1001, an act to revise freeze on assessments for dwellings of disabled and senior citizens.
Gone through the House and is now also Senate to Senate taxation.
And Senate Bill 85, an act to create the ARPA Water Environment Fund, create a sub-fund to make an appropriation therefore and to declare an emergency.
I think that's in appropriations right now.
Tabled at Senate State Affairs.
Oh, was it tabled in Senate State Affairs? Okay. Oh, yes, it was. I know that. I testified on it. But I testified in favor. But it got tabled.
And Senate Bill 53, an act to make an appropriation to increase workforce housing and declare an emergency.
Scheduled for a hearing tomorrow, Senate Committee on Appropriations.
This one here actually might be in session right now. It's House Bill 1061. And that would be an act to codify an advisory council for the appraiser certification program. I know that was going to get held today in room 410 at the Capitol, but I don't know if there's any current information on that one or not.
That one's gone through the House of Representatives and is now on the Senate side. It's Senate Commerce and Energy.
That's all I had.
Any others people have concerns with? Holly, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Motion for a 10-minute break.
Not at this time.
Do public comment?
Have a comment?
Public comment.
Oh, Sorry.
Okay, items from the public. Anyone here desiring to discuss with the commission anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on, and I think I heard a motion for a 10-minute break until 10:30,
Second.
when we'll move into the Board of Adjustment. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Take a motion to go into Board of Adjustment.
So move.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Just a reminder again for everyone to turn off their cell phones. If you want to speak on anything on the agenda, I would encourage you to fill out the speaker request form and deliver it to Holly Hennies up here on your right. First item we have is 21A, variance 21-37. Cody.
Cody Sack, environmental planner. Item A is variance VA 21-37. It is to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 0 feet. Setback for an existing barn on the subject property. The applicant and landowner is Michael and Angela Holmberg. The agent is Runner Associate. The location is at 23359 Brodsky Road. This was continued from the February 1st, 2022 Board of Adjustment meeting to allow the state's attorney's office to research conditions for the Board of Adjustment may consider with the request. And staff has added a condition based off of that finding. I believe she sent a memo to Holly with that finding. With that, staff still recommends denial, as there's no special conditions on the property that would excuse literal enforcement of Pennington County zoning ordinance PCZO section 205. The applicant's request to plat is the reason the variance is required. An option exists that appears to avoid the need for platting and the variance request. However, if the Board of Adjustment disagrees and approves the request, staff would recommend 2 conditions.
Questions of Cody?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek?
Cody, did I read that there is another option? Could you explain that, please?
So the applicant in, I believe it was November of 2020, received approval to put a ranch hand residence or hired help on the property. That was approved by the Planning Commission. He submitted a building permit. That building permit was approved to put a double-wide mobile home on the property, and a septic permit was approved as well. So that option still exists for him to place another residence on the property.
So Chairman,
Commissioner Adcock?
does it take, are you saying he has to take down the barn, or what are you gonna do with the?
No, with that option, we approved it as long as he didn't change the lines.
So the second condition says that the applicant will sign an encroachment agreement for the barn with Pennington County.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be better.
Mr. Holmberg, would you like to say something?
I was just
Answer a question? Okay.
yeah, just here to answer a question if there was.
Okay.
To address the building permit on a double wide, that was the original intent. But the lead time, the value, the several conditions why we decided not to do a modular or mobile home and stick build one instead was cost, basically. And can't find what they would like to have.
Okay. Action by the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner LaCroy?
I think when this was up 2 weeks ago, I mean, I remember when this come forward because Brodsky Road's just been a tough deal, and you were doing the hired hand deal, and I remember that, and then all of a sudden, we did the exception, provided it, nothing changed, and then now it changed from modular to a stick-built home, and you want to separate the lots, and I understand it. Your son wants to live there, and that's what this is for. My concern over last meeting was the barn, or stall barn. I mean, it's going to be around a while. It's well-built still. if something happens in the future, because we don't know 20, 30 years from now, your son might decide to move to Hawaii or something, I don't know. You know what I mean? If we need that road to expand. And I think staff did a good job bringing back, and I want to know if you have a problem with this, that the applicant signed an encroachment agreement for the barn with Pennington County, which would mean basically if it comes to that point, there's no cost to the county to be able to do our road, if I'm correct. If anybody wants to.
Yes, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but
She's going to come up, our attorney's going to come up and explain it so that you and everybody else and myself understand this.
Megan Kruger with the State's Attorney's Office. So typically our encroachment agreements include clauses that basically hold the county harmless if they need to take property in the future. So the county wouldn't have to pay the property owner or any future property owners for having to take that portion of the road that they need in order to build a road in the future, which could include removing that structure. So the county wouldn't be paying for any of that if it came to that in the future.
And I guess I just wanted to make sure you kind of understood that, because our lifetime, it may not happen, but
I understand I have another barn on this property that is in flood way or zone, however you stated, and I know that if it ever floods out, burns down, whatever, I know I can't put it back.
that was the same way with this
Same with
one.
this.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
along, yes, I agree with that, and my personal opinion is that barn is too close to the road. We were kind of discussing last week that it was built in 1970. No, it's been there for 70 years. That barn's been there for,
It's holding up for,
yes, and it is too close to the road. When my son was young, he could go running out the end of the barn and there's cars going by, and yeah, I mean, that was scary, but.
okay.
So, I mean, I would, if the barn did go down, I wouldn't put it back there as it is, but I am accepting
Encroachment.
if I have to, or if it goes away, burns down, whatever, I know I can't put it back there, and I wouldn't put it there.
Chairman.
Commissioner Adcock.
So, number one, I'd like to apologize to Megan because of the continuance, and I hadn't heard of it, or maybe I forgot, I don't know, but I apologized to Megan, and I said I was going to our other state's attorney because I was wrong, but I always trust but verify, but for some reason, I didn't think we've done that before, so totally was wrong on that situation, and appreciate Megan coming up and moving that forward as well to this board. And then number two, Michael, so the bottom line is if we have an encroachment agreement, you're okay with the encroachment agreement because it still keeps your barn, and also for the future, it makes it so if we have to expand that road, which, like I said, it's 24 foot with side, I don't think that's gonna happen anytime in the future, anytime soon, but it also keeps you so you can have that barn that's been in your family probably a long time, so.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
I make a motion to approve with two conditions as stated.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. A motion by Commissioner Roskinek, second by Commissioner Lassiter to approve. Any public comment? Any further comment by the commission? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Thanks, Ray.
Item D, variance for Michael and Catherine Cruz.
Cody Sack, environmental planner. Item B is variance VA 22-01. It is to reduce the rear yard setback from 58, rear yard setback from 58 feet to 40 feet to add an addition onto a single-family residence. The applicant and landowner is Michael and Catherine Cruz. Location of the property is 3409 Cary Drive, involves 1.58 acres. It's own suburban residential district with an existing land use of residential. Access is off Cary Drive, and there is no special flood hazard area on the property. When reviewing variances, there's two prongs that we look at for criteria. Prong number one Whether granting the variance runs counter to public interest. I'll read the answers. Number one, yes, the requested setback will put the proposed addition only 7 feet from the section line that could be developed in the future. A setback to the right-of-way will create safety issues if it is ever fully developed in the future. Number two, no, all the structures in the neighborhood meet the required 58-foot setback. Number three, no, the zoning ordinance requires a 58-foot setback from all section line right-of-way. Number four, no, actually it does not apply. Number five, yes, a 40-foot setback to the section line could harm public safety if it is ever fully developed in the future. And for problem number two, whether a special condition exists to grant a variance. Number one, no, no physical conditions exist that would warrant the approval of this variance. There are no topographical constraints that would prevent a residential addition from the sides or front of the residence. Therefore, the applicant has other options besides a variance. Currently on the residence, there is a single-family residence built in 1975 and a detached garage built in 2007 and another 28 by 28 detached garage that was built in 2021. This was rather on for interdepartment review. There were no major comments or concerns that were received. The applicant is requesting a setback variance to construct a residential addition. On December 21st, 2021, the Board of Commissioners denied the request for the applicant to vacate a portion of the section line right-of-way on the east lot line of the subject property. On February 8th, 2022, staff performed a site visit and found no topographic issues that would prohibit the residential addition on either the front or the sides of the existing residence. There are other locations that a residential addition could be built without requiring a variance. So with that, staff is recommending denial, as there are no special conditions on the property that would excuse literal enforcement of the Pennington County zoning ordinance, and an option exists that appears to avoid the need for the variance request. However, if the Board of Adjustment disagrees and approves the request, staff would recommend one condition.
So if the commission remembers, when this came before us before, it was for vacating a portion of a section line. And to my knowledge, nobody had been able to make contact with the owners on the other side of that. It's listed to an LLC far out of state. And it was this commission's recommendation at that point in time that instead of vacating that section line, that it be brought back as a variance instead. And so that's what you have before you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
going back a little bit further, it was also planning and zoning that recommended the vacation of the section line, so it's kind of a interesting trail there, but I just want to say that based on all these facts, I'm in favor of this particular request.
So Chairman,
Commissioner Adcock.
Highway Superintendent Joe, can you come forward on this? To me, this is a good compromise from where we were before. I know you would like nothing in some cases, but we have compromised with people before, and I thought that, to me, this sounded like a pretty good compromise where he could still put his addition where he wanted, but still have that road, so if we needed it for the future, we could still build on it.
I would agree.
Okay.
It is a good compromise. It leaves the section line intact and that public right-of-way intact for future use, so.
I don't know if I can make the motion, but I'll move approval.
Commissioner Adcock made the motion to approve. Is there a
Second.
And a second by Commissioner Roskinek. Any public comment in regard to this? Back to the commission. Any further discussion?
That was with that one condition.
Yes.
Yep.
And because it was a hardship, in a sense, on that section line, and we did a compromise, that's why I believe it's in the nature of what we should be doing for this addition and with that section line.
Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to adjourn as the Board of Adjustment and reconvene as the Board of Commissioners.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to go back to the Board of Commissioners. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Following planning and zoning matters in our uncontested hearings are those which the planning department has not yet received or provided comment contesting the item. The documents for each item have been reviewed by the commissioners, and decisions during these hearings will be made based on the information provided in the packet and the short presentation. we receive comment contesting the item, the matter will be addressed in the same manner as a contested hearing. Uncontested hearings. Item C, public hearing rezone.
Sorry, Cody Sack, Environmental Planner. Item C is rezone RZ 21-32. It is to rezone 1 acre from agriculture district to low-density residential district. The applicant and landowner is Michael and Angela Humberg. The agent is Renner Associates. Location of the property is 23359 Bradsky Road. Involves 1 acre. Current zoning is agriculture district. Existing land use is residential. Access is off Bradsky Road, and there is special flood hazard area on the property. This was heard before the Planning Commission, where they recommended approval, and staff also recommends approval of rezone RZ 21-32.
Questions?
Chairman.
Commissioner Adcock.
So our plan on the section line, construct a road to be 20-foot wide. Why won't we just do it 24, leave the existing drainage ditches, which makes sense, in the 18-inch
No,
culvert?
C.
Yeah.
The wrong one?
Yep.
Thank you. I had a migraine, so I'm kind of losing it a bit, sorry. Nobody's home in there.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Got a
Second.
motion and a second by Commissioner LaCroy and Commissioner Lassiter for approval of rezone RZ 21-32. All those in favor, or is there any public comment? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Contested hearings. Item D.
Item D is road construction within a section line right-of-way, CS 22-01. It's to construct a 20-foot wide road within the section line right-of-way between sections 13 and 14, Township 2 North, Range 9E, to provide access to the property located in Section 13, Township 2 North, Range 9E. The applicant and landowner is Jeff and Leah Lick. Size of the property is 40 acres. Current zoning is agriculture district with existing land use of agriculture and residential. Access is off 225th Street, and there is no special flood hazard area on the property. This was routed around for interdepartment review. County Highway objects to not building the road to Ordinance 14 standards. The proposed road construction will be 20 feet wide with 4 to 5 inch gravel surface with ditches 2 feet in depth. Oh, nope, not that. C will not, actually does not apply. He's not requesting to have 2-foot ditches. The variance to Ordinance 14 standards that he's requesting is to waive engineered design road construction plans. Road width of 20 feet instead of 24 feet, and to not construct a turnaround and not to construct 2-foot ditches. The road will access a future residence. Staff is recommending approval of construction within a section line right-of-way, CS 22-01 with conditions.
Oh, Chairman, sorry, I was
Commissioner
in the wrong
Adcock.
one. Why wouldn't we do 24 if we're 4 inches off? So it's in a section line, on a section line road. Why wouldn't we just start with the standards? Since you guys thought are you saying it was okay to construct it at 20 inch with the ditches and?
No, that's what the applicant is requesting. County Highway and the Planning Department are saying that it needs to meet Ordinance 14 standards, so the 24-foot wide road.
Okay, on a section line, to me, it should be the 24-foot road. We just had barns built and different things in different areas because we're not building it up to standards. So the turnaround, and I don't know if I'm in favor of that, but I think the 24-inch road with the existing drainage ditch to install the culvert, to me, Joe, can you come up here for a sec? Sorry, Cody.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, I think.
are we off one here? I think they just want
The
to,
wrong one again?
Yeah, you're.
they got these labeled here. These are all labeled wrong.
Yeah, so D and E kind of run concurrently. D will approve that he can construct the road within the section line right away. E will be the waivers that are granted.
I'm going to totally apologize because I have a migraine and strobe light on my eyes, so I can't see this very good. So.
You guys would like to take D and get that out of the way, we can discuss E.
Yeah, let's do D first.
Move for approval.
Sorry,
I've got a motion
Second.
to approve item D.
Second.
In a second.
I apologize.
Any public comment? on forward.
Not public, I'm the actual landowner.
Okay,
Is that okay?
okay.
Okay.
Identify yourself.
Jeff Lick.
Okay.
Basically, where we're kind of coming from is we feel a section line road is a public access road. And I understand where the highway department's coming from as far as like future development possibilities. I know the property right next to us off of this section line road is actually owned by the landowner at the end of the road. So he has no intention of selling. He uses it as ag ground, and that's his hay crop. You know, I know that maybe not have a variable in this, but when we purchased the property, we had no idea about these stipulations. We weren't told by the landowner or our realtor that there have to be improvements on this. We just figured it was the road to get to the property. So once we closed on the property, then we start doing our applications. That's when we find out that there's all these other things that have to be done. It honestly is not something that we budgeted for, and we're on a very tight budget. I'm building my house myself. I'm a licensed contractor. I know how much engineers cost. They're very expensive. I don't feel that's something we should need. I'm fully capable of improving this road, and the improvements that are attached on there, I feel are completely reasonable, and that way I don't have to disrupt the current ditches that are already there. Because we get into that, that's just going to be a lot more work, a lot more money. I'm basically just asking to put a driveway up to the section line road, and from there, other people still get to use it. It's still a public road, and I'm paying for all these improvements, and I just don't feel it's.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
so I submitted this example, which better depicts what's going on here. What he's doing is he's building a 1,320-foot driveway that goes basically, after that, it goes nowhere to my.
It just goes to my neighbor at the end of the road.
So until such time that would warrant ordinance 14.
Right.
I think we've done this on numerous situations where somebody just wants to access a building site, and that's where it stops. Someday that could get developed, but based on what I'm looking at here, I don't see the likelihood of that, so.
And even if my standing is, even if it did get developed, hopefully it's a company and they're gonna subdivide it. They are gonna have to apply to do that road then. And that cost would go to a giant company. I'm not a giant company. I just wanna live on my dream property, and I just don't wanna have to spend all this extra money to do it. And I feel the improvements that we're making are gonna be amazing. It's gonna be completely
Can
different.
you bring me up to speed? What are you proposing then?
I'm fine with doing the 18-inch culvert off of 225th. The road right now goes straight down. It's difficult. You can't even get a car in there. So I want to raise that up anyway. So I don't mind doing the culvert. I plan on the road will be a minimum of 20-foot wide, 4 to 5-inch gravel base. And then I want to do a 15-inch culvert that goes into my property off of the section line road.
So when you go south of your property, what's that little, is it 5 or 10 acre piece down there?
There is, I don't know why it's length like that. It's another 40-acre property.
Okay. And who owns that?
It's an LLC. But
Well, if they need to get to that, they can still go
yeah, they'll be still
west side of
using,
your,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So they're also gaining from my improvements,
Right.
which, that's, I guess, where we stand.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
I just want to remind us, we're on item D, which is, I think we could dispose of, and what you're asking is for the variance, which is the C, next one,
E,
or E, yeah, excuse me. It's the next item, so,
no having Deb tell you the numbers or the letters.
Just got off one.
yeah,
We just need to vote on
D first.
D.
I think they
Yes.
already, oh, yeah, right.
We have to
Yep.
do all in favor.
Have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got a motion and a second on item D to approve.
Right.
Allow the construction in the section.
Pardon?
So approving item D, oh, sorry, Curtis Hack, environmental planner. Approving item D will allow the construction within the section line to ordinance 14 standards. Item E will be any waivers that come, that the board wishes to grant.
Yeah, okay.
Cody,
Okay.
you realize that these are not labeled right, that's why the confusion. I got two Cs.
I'm sorry, Ron, that mistake is on mine, and I didn't get your agenda corrected.
Oh, okay.
By the time you
That's
had already picked it up.
We're getting it worked out now.
Okay.
Ben
So,
just has a
okay,
headache and
so,
can't see the letters.
so item D, the first one, the one that we have the motion on, sets it at standards 14. Item E is the one that would, is the request, being made by the licks to, then, relax that, to not building to standard 14.
Yep.
Okay? So I have a motion and a second on item D. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now item E is the request to not build to ordinance 14 standards.
So Chairman, can I ask some questions?
Commissioner Hadcock.
Okay, sorry. So, sir, what is the road right now?
It's just a two-track dirt road.
It's not a 20-foot road or whatever?
In spots, it's about 20 foot.
Okay, so it's like 20 foot now?
Yeah.
And that's why you're just gonna overlay it? And how far are we talking on the section line that, not your driveway, but the,
From 225th Street to my proposed driveway spot, I think is 1,300 and,
1,320.
yeah,
That's what it shows
1,320.
here.
how far?
1,320 feet.
Okay, and Joe, you want him to improve that 1,300 up to 24-foot roads, ditches?
So the issue we run into with section line, if we scroll out here, there's a lot of barren property out there. We all know Box Elder is expanding, right? This property right here has got I believe there's a development plan that is coming forward. So Box Elder is going this direction, just like Rapid City is.
What section is that you're saying is?
I don't know for sure. I've just heard some rumors that 16,
16,
right? We're over here in
14,
right? Between 13 and 14. So we're 2 miles away, right? So could be 5 years from now, it could be 10 years from now that development is growing that far out. The issue that the highway department, and Sean met with the landowner out there, and I'll let him speak, but we start these variances at first, right? They just keep going down. They keep getting granted. So now if that's on a section line, so if it's ever part of the highway system, right, now the county has to pay to improve it, which shouldn't be the case. So we have several instances of this throughout the county. Mount Royal is one up off of Moon Meadows. There were a lot of variances granted, right? And then one guy at the end had to suck up all the costs. So if we start from the very beginning, right, one guy or one company doesn't have to suck up the entire cost. So
Oh, Joe, so how do you do it differently? So he has a 24-foot improved road in 1,300 feet. Because he's not, is he the beginning of that development or is he in the
you're
middle?
right here, correct?
Right.
Right here?
Yeah,
Yes,
parcel.
yes.
See what I'm saying? So now you have a whole road, so isn't it kind of weird to put maybe that's why I think we always did it, because you get 24-foot road into a 20-foot road, and then you have a 20-foot road behind it, but at least we have the middle of the 24-foot road, right?
He's starting out, right? He's got 1,320 feet right off of 225th Street. Right now, it's a 2-track trail that this guy, I'm assuming, used to access his hay ground. Is that correct, Sean? Yeah. I'll let Sean speak here. He met with Mr. Lick out on site here.
Show me where the major or minor arterial would be 225 Street, right? And then you'd come down a whole, I don't know, is that 40 or 80 acres, 40 acres? And then, Mr. Lick.
That's where my property starts, is after the first 40.
Second one, yeah, you're the second. See what I'm saying? So what happens above it, right? Because it's 20 foot to a piece of 1,320, right? No? Why, no. Okay, Sean, go ahead.
Sean Smith, Highway Department. So, yeah, what it appeared to have happened was it's currently being utilized for agriculture for this gentleman down here. It
Okay.
looks like somebody went through the piece of equipment, took material off the west side, took material off the east, piled it up, and you got dirt, a 2-track trail. It kind of meanders through. There's a portion here I question whether it's still actually within that section line right away, because it meanders quite a ways to the west. So, yeah, your surface there varies anywhere from 12 feet to maybe up to 20 feet of just a dirt top right now is what you've got set up. And
Okay.
his proposed location for his driveway is about right here. So I would actually say it's probably closer to 1350. He's probably about 20 to 30 feet into his property. That
And Sean, he's just doing this, the little piece in the square. He's not going all the way up, right? He's
The
not going all the way up
improvement-
to 250.
Yes, the improvement would be from here to his driveway portion right here.
Oh, I thought you meant it
Section
was
line
just the
here.
corner.
No.
No, this section line here
That's why.
of 1320 of the section line plus whatever additional to get to his driveway approach right in here.
Okay. I thought you were like, that's not his property, so he doesn't have to do that. You're just gonna make him do that 24-foot
and-
into his driveway, and I'm like,
And as Joe alluded, one of the problems that we run into on these section lines is if this is deeded out by adequate description, meaning they're not platting it, they're just describing, because right now, his is described as this, either. So it's described here as the southwest quarter, the northwest quarter, meaning there's no plat of this. So if this is deeded out as 10 acres or 20 acres, 10 acres, 20 acres, all the way down through here, all of this, there never goes through a platting process. So we have no means to put it on a developer to have them improve this road. That's where we get piecemealed in with requests here for variance, because it's deeded out by description, not by plat.
so does Jeff own the whole, Jeff, do you own the whole orange area?
Correct.
This 40
So,
acres.
let me ask you something that's crazy. So, you have a section line, it's above him, and we're not making that property owner do it, and then below, we're not gonna make his whole section line improved? Wouldn't it make more sense if you own the property to do the section line in the orange and not the blue? If you're gonna approve it for the future and you're gonna affect your own property, maybe that sounds weird because you want contiguous in one sense, but should you have to put it on a section line and somebody else is gonna build there, won't they have to do section line into his property? You see what I'm saying? Why would you
Yeah.
do the blue that's not his property?
There's a current landowner that owns, and you can even see their driveway right there.
Yeah.
They
So
own those two
Same deal?
parcels.
They own these two parcels right here, and they access off of 225th Street. So that's why they never improved the section line. This was for ag access only, basically, for this gentleman down here. The reason we're asking for this to be improved is this is a section, he's constructing
Right.
within a section line to access his property. So he's going to his driveway, right? So he's got 40 acres here, or however many acres he's got. So this person down here, so if, say this gentleman decides he wants to sell off 40 acres down here, right?
Right.
This gentleman would then have to construct the rest of that section line to his property to ordinance 14 standards.
Which sounds crazy because it seems like if they build above it, they should do theirs, he should do his.
Well, it's accessing their property, you know, what you're saying, he would have to, in our opinion, he should improve the entire 2,600 feet then.
But if he was developing, I could see that. And it might be, like you said, it might be developed in the future, and if it's gonna be developed in the future, they would have to do that section line, but
But like Sean just said, this is by eloquent description. It never goes through a platting process. So it might not ever come in front of you guys for subdivision. I don't know, Brittany or Cody might be able to speak to
That's true, 'cause we
the
do
platting process. So
zoning.
we've got to start getting this to ordinance 14 from the beginning.
Mr. Chair.
Let me finish just for a sec. So I like going I like infrastructure and I like us doing infrastructure and getting it ready for the future in one sense, but the other, you see what I'm saying? You're doing a section line on someone else's property that they can make money off later, and you're not doing it on his own.
So I think that, sorry, Cody Sack, environmental planner. I think the thing to consider though is that that might be his property line, but the 66-foot wide section line is public right of way.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So for him, so since he's accessing off of that public right of way is where that would need to be improved down to there, not just his property. He would need to improve everything that he's going to be accessing off
But
of.
if it was a 24-foot road with ditches and stuff, it'd still be public, wouldn't it?
It would, but from what I'm understanding, what you're kind of saying is that it would make more sense for him to just do his portion of the property, but he's not taking access off of this portion of the property. He's taking access off of this portion above it, which is public right of way.
Which I'm
Commissioner Roskinek.
kidding, but that's Jay's.
You know, I agree with Joe. I totally agree with Joe. But if you expand that out, you're building a road, a county road to nowhere, and that's the part I don't understand. What he's doing right now, he's building a driveway, and I don't think he should have to build a driveway, the county ordinance, or 14 ordinance specifications. If you put a topography, the profile, you probably see that a lot of that isn't conducive to building a road anyhow. I would think that, anyhow, I have to take these on a case-by-case basis, and this one here, I just have a hard time making somebody do that to that ordinance 14 specifications, knowing that it probably will never go anywhere anyhow, other than a driveway maybe, a driveway to the 40 below maybe. But I've seen driveways 20 feet wide that would access 2 or 3 residential home sites.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
No, I think
Go ahead.
Travis was first.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Okay. I'd move to approve the request to waive the requirements not to submit engineered and road construction plans and waive the requirements to construct a turnaround 2 feet deep ditches less than 6 inches of gravel and road width of 24 feet. It is further moved to approve the road to be built 20-foot wide with 4 to 5 inches of gravel.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I just
Commissioner
have a couple
Lassiter.
of questions. This has kind of bothered me too, when we have one person who's trying to access, 40 acres or whatever size acreage out there, and it's not a full development where you're going out there. And so my question to the highway department, when we require them to go to ordinance 14 standards, you don't take over and maintain that road once they build it, do you?
No.
So the landowner then has to maintain that road and all that to your standards, even though there's nobody else out there that may be accessing it except for him to his property.
Correct, but, and Megan might be able to speak better to this statute, or Jay, I know. So this road, it's in a section line, right? There's a road in it, it's public access, there's no road authority over it, it falls on the jurisdiction of the county.
So then you're going to maintain that road.
Not necessarily. It falls under the jurisdiction of the county, not necessarily the maintenance of the county.
They have to apply, Travis, to be maintained.
Megan Kruger with the state's attorney's office. So we can have low maintenance and minimum maintenance roads. So those low maintenance and minimum maintenance roads, if they're designated as such, means that Joe isn't going to do as much work on it. But if there is ever an issue on that road where it's damaged to the point where the public can't drive on it, then Joe is going to have to go out and fix it, because it's still our responsibility, because it's on a section line. It's not a driveway. It's actually a road.
So follow up to that, if you don't mind. So if I own that land, and may not need your answer there, Megan, I'm just going to ask a question. I don't think I'm going a legal route, but maybe I could be wrong. But if I own that land and I only wanted to use it for cattle, I go down there and I fence it off for cattle and whatnot, I can drive up and down that public access, get to my property, do whatever I want to do, put a barn, put a well in and all that kind of good stuff. But the moment I want to put a house on it and things of that nature, then it changes that I have to put a road in on it. But that still doesn't change the public access following down that section line to get to any of the other parcels that are off of that section line down there. That's where I get hung up on this, is that if you're not putting in a development, Joe, that's where I get hung up. I could understand if we were parceling out that 40 acres and putting in, 10-acre, a developer's coming in there and putting in 14-acre lots or something of that nature, having to have an access road down there. But I don't know, man, living out where I live, and, I have a little, my road, my little dirt road's about 8 feet wide, maybe 10 feet wide. So I just get kind of, when it's one person running a small ranch, that's where it becomes a challenge for me to say, yes, we should make them do that to ordinance 14 standards.
So we need to think not right now, but to the future. This is public right of way. It's on a section line, right? I realize some may think right now it's a road to nowhere, right? But Box Elder's 2 miles to the east, right? If Mr. Lick, he said it himself, he's a contractor, he's going to build his own house. So if he wants to build his house on whatever corner of this, right, and keep the other 40 acres for development in the future, at some point, we've got to start enforcing our ordinance 14 standards, right? We've got a lot of, I've brought up one specific that I know of, Mount Royal, that the road was allowed variance, and then it got to the end, and now one guy is stuck with it, and there's several other houses on it, right? So I know a lot of it lies with you guys, right, in your hands, but I would encourage you to start enforcing building to these to ordinance 14. It's not a driveway, it's a road, right? And it's in a section line. So therefore, as Megan said, we have no maintenance, we have minimum maintenance, and we have those roads that we maintain. Our office is currently working on trying to a project is a very large undertaking because there's several instances just like this. You said that if you were accessing cattle, it's still on a section line. If there's some sort of road there and vehicle traffic can travel down it, I would tend to believe that still falls under the jurisdiction of the county. So you go East River, that's all over the place. So
One more thing.
Commissioner Hadcock.
So, Joe, just for example, there's a 20-foot road there with some ditches with a culvert, because that's what he's gonna put in, that's what he accepted. So if someone builds on their area on either side, then I think you can put the 24-foot, meaning, there's gonna be more building there. And if we needed to expand it because of how much more building that was going in on there, it totally makes sense. But a 20-foot road with ditches for a guy that he has to access his property, how about the people that, the next person that it really is their access? I mean, that sounds weird, but I conflict with trying to do, help people with their properties, but also 14 standards. So what I'm saying is if they build there on the blue line, somebody on either side, bring it up to 24 feet, make the culverts bigger. It's going to affect the properties more. You have more property that's going to affect it. It makes sense for the drainage in all the areas that might conflict with it. For a guy that's just building one, like the commissioners are saying, I conflict with that. At least he's doing a 20-foot road, which gives him access, which gives your culverts, that helps the drainage, that helps all the infrastructure in that area. I just go back and forth because it's not his land and it's public access. So
So, I mean, if he wanted to, he could speak to the individual that accesses off of 225th and get an easement, right, to access his property somewhere else, and he could build pretty much whatever he wanted. It would be a driveway at that point, right? He could build it 12 foot wide. Might cost him a little bit less, right? He might not be willing to give up an access. The thing we need to keep in mind, this is a section line and it is public access. It does fall under the jurisdiction and the responsibility of the county.
but you're also saying, Joe, that there's going to be expansion there in the future, and it's coming out about 2 miles away. And so I see if it's coming in 2 miles away and it does come in, that's when you go, okay, guys, you need to do this 24 feet.
So, Mr. Lick, did you recently purchase this property?
Yes.
Let me ask you, did the real estate agent understand what you planned on doing with that property, of building
Yeah.
your own home on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
they knew from day one.
I think your real estate agent failed to provide you with
Very
all
much
the
so.
information.
Yeah.
And I hear exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree with with Joe either in regard to that. But I do look at this as being, does the person above this, adjacent to where we're talking about the section line, is that who you purchased it from? Is that the,
No.
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
sometimes I wonder if the ordinance just needs to be upgraded where if you're going to have 3 or more residences, just different mechanisms, because I'm sure this is going to come in front of us again. And to me, we need to look at that ordinance so that we don't have to be spending our time at these meetings getting this hashed out. It should be in black and white, make it fairly simple.
Sure, come on ahead.
We have no intentions.
Just identify yourself. I know who you are.
Leah Leck. We have no intentions, though, to subdivide or anything. We plan on having animals and not going anywhere. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind me also making another statement. The other thing that concerns me is if he puts in the ordinance 14 road and if you put in a water line or you put in a sewer line, whoever taps into that water line or sewer line has to pay a fee to get into that because there's developer fees and all that, for putting in that line. If we make him do the 24, ordinance 14 standards, anybody can plat off of any of those properties off of there and get free access. They didn't have to build the road, and there's no tap. I'm going to use that term tap fee for them to pay into for him to recover his money. That's where, if we're going to look at this, I think we need to look at the ordinance in a different manner. That if we're going to do this, if we're going to require ordinance 14, then properties that plat in the area that maybe an individual had to come to ordinance 14 standards, they've got to pay into that, so they don't get a free access point. Just because he came in, bought it now, and then they're like, oh, now we've got this ordinance 14 roads, so now let's go ahead and plan off this stuff and make all of our money, and we didn't have to put the road in. That's where I get struggling with this, because I get what you're doing, Joe, because I know we have tons of road issues. But for one, to do it whenever it's just one place, that's where I'm struggling with this. And that's why I tend to want to give the variances whenever it's one piece of property, and the others who are above it don't have to do anything to help cover the cost if they decided to plat out and then do it their own little development.
Further discussion.
One last
Commissioner
thing. I made the motion for the exception, but I'd ask Megan, because I tend to agree with Travis. One item we just worked with, we found an encroachment agreement. Is there possibilities of, when we do something like this, a variance from the ordinance 14 to do some type of variance that if something comes up where it gets subdivided, you're expected to help pay?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That you not just give them a free pass completely, but when something else comes up, we can put that clause on. I'm just asking this for future research.
And that's certainly something I can research off the top of my head. I don't know. I would have to look at the state statutes to see what authority there is as far as, because it would really come from the platting process. The only issue I could see, and I don't know, Brittany told me that she doesn't think that this could go through eloquent description. But if it does, if it could be subdivided up through eloquent description, it would actually never come in front of any of the bodies for fixing that road later on.
Yeah, I just wouldn't bring that up because I think it kind of coincides with what Travis was saying, and I think that's something I'm kind of gathering the commission would like to do something, but we also want to help out the property owners, so. If we could research it and.
Yes, I can research it.
So Cody, one final question from me. Is there access to this property or that property below it from any other area?
No,
Only access to it.
Cody Sack, environmental planner. The property below it could go off of 226th, but then again, you run into the issue that that's a section line. They would have to improve that section line. One thing about this property and actually the 3 properties to the east, those were all eloquently described. So the planning department did not see any of this before those properties were done. If they were platted, we have our subregs that require improvement and dedication to the section line. But if like the property to the south is eloquently described into 5 more lots, that'll take access off of this road, then it's, by not building an ordinance 14 standards now, you're putting it on those people who bought a property that was eloquently described to improve this road, this section of road to the 24 feet, plus to the south of it as well.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve the request to not to build ordinance 14.
Can I say one more thing real fast? Sorry. Staff has some conditions that they would like to add if the waivers are approved.
What are those conditions?
So the one that's on the memo is that any future development or access off this portion of section line road or future development or access off the extended portion of the south obtain its own separate waivers. So anybody to the south who builds would have to obtain their own waivers for that section of the road and then come back and obtain waivers for this section of the road as well, or improve it to ordinance 14. And then there was a discrepancy on the size culvert that the applicant put on the sheet, and then what you stated here. I think you said you were going to do.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't know that until I talked to Sean the other day, and he said that a 15-inch culvert would be acceptable for the driveway.
Okay, so staff would recommend the condition that it's a 15-inch culvert for the driveway. 15-inch, sorry, not foot. 15-inch, that'd be massive.
That's totally different.
Yeah, and then the third condition would be when Highway was out there, they had concerns that the road actually went outside the section line, so that section line road would be surveyed to show that it's within the section line, because otherwise you're getting onto a neighbor's property that you're building a road on a neighbor's
Okay,
property
so
without
put that in
permission.
executive summary for me. The three again.
So condition one would be that any future development or access off the portion of the section line road or future development or access off the extended portion of the section line road to the south obtain its own separate waivers. Condition two would be that it's a 15-inch culvert be installed for the driveway. And condition three would be that the section line road that's proposed is surveyed to show that it falls within the section line right away.
A question on the survey. Is that their responsibility to survey that section line?
So if they're developing it, the county can require it to be surveyed, because Sean's concerned, there's 33 feet on either side. So if they go outside that 33 feet, the county commission would basically be approving a road that would go onto a neighbor's property outside of the section line, which you would need that homeowner's permission or property owner's permission to construct anything on their property.
Can I just say one last thing? My only discrepancy to that is the county built that road.
No,
Our section line road's built by,
that was.
No, that was done by a property owner to the south who accesses it for agriculture purposes.
oh, okay.
Okay, so when that property owner built that road, there was no requirement of a survey at that point in time then?
No, so when you're accessing a section line road specifically for agriculture purposes, it does not need to be opened or a road construction permit from the county. If the state required that or the county required that, every section line east of town would require to come in front of the board for approval for it. So there's some leeway with that. But since he's proposing to build the road exactly how it is, and off of it, we would request that it would be shown that it's inside the section line.
Motion maker's okay with the three additions of the second, with the friendly amendment. If the second.
For all three? Is that what you're saying?
I was the second, so
You're okay with
Yes,
the
sir.
second?
just one question though.
Yeah, Commissioner Hadcock.
Why didn't we have the first requirement to help us when we were first making our decision? I'm just saying, that they can build it up to the standards once it's built. that kind of
Follow
thing.
up if I could.
Commissioner LaCroix.
I'm hesitant on that survey too, sir, but I think we are giving on this and we're gonna do some research further on this, but to get the survey, I don't wanna put any more hard burden on not only the rest of the taxpayers, but our highway department, if that is out. I think this is a good thing that's happening for you. The survey you may not agree with, but I think it's gonna help not only you, but us in the future.
The only thing I want to say, The problem with the survey, I know how backed up every surveyor in this city is and the whole state. I can't even file for my building permit. I can't break ground until this road is constructed, is what I was told. So the longer this delays, it's just eating up at my 1 year time to get my house built. And every day to me is critical right now.
And I'll agree, because remember, we couldn't build the fire service buildings or do anything. It's been months, 6 months backed up with surveys. That's the only thing I was gonna tell you, and I don't know how we solve it, because we have to do it right, Joe.
Well, I know of one instance in the last couple of years that there is a section line road that was built by a rancher or farmer or whoever out east of town, and the road is on their property. So now they're asking, because it's on a section line, that the county highway department or the county commission come and move that road, right? So it falls on the taxpayers. The rest of the taxpayers, if you don't get the survey and that road's not built within the section line, it very well could fall within the rest of the taxpayers
Right, but
to fix it, right? I get the backup in surveyors, but that's a very crucial part of this. You got to know that you're putting the road where it needs to go.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
Joe, you can see how many section lines there are and how many trails there are in section lines. So can we make the assumption that those roads are in or out? I guess, that's my question. So we don't know that that road's in, but we don't know that it's out.
Right, but once you go to start, right now it's a 2-track trail for somebody accessing cattle ground, right? There's no gravel on it, I assume, right, Sean? There's no gravel, there's nothing. Right now, currently, it's a dirt trail. Somebody's driving down it to access for cattle. But now that we go to improve it, we're putting aggregate and everything on possibly somebody else's property, and they're trespassing, right? So, and the road will be built on somebody else's property, which then the county very well may need an easement. They may be asked to remove the roadway in the instance that I was speaking about earlier. So there's any number of things that can happen if it's not built within that section line.
And if I could just speak briefly on the legality of it, Megan Kruger with the state's attorney's office. I just would have concerns if the road was put in the wrong place. The county commissioners are essentially allowing them to build a road on somebody else's property. And there could be constitutional issues with that, taking issues with that, potential liability. So from the state's attorney's point of view, I think the survey would be best to ensure that the road is going in the right place.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
I would like to know how all these little trails, you go pheasant hunting, you got all these section lines. How do we, are we going to do this every time this comes up? We're going to make people engineer a section line? Or are we just going to go based on this, the way it's been for 100 years?
And Ron, I think I can speak to that a little bit. So it's the public's responsibility on those unimproved section lines to make sure that they're actually on the section line. When that road is actually developed, it's truly on the county to make sure that it's put in the right place. When you're just walking down a section line that's unimproved, it's that private person's responsibility to make sure that they're in the right place. Because if they're not, they're trespassing, right? But when we're talking about improving a road, because the homeowner has to get permission from the county commissioners in order to improve that road, I have concerns that there would be some liability there if we allowed the road to be in the wrong place.
I guess my question is that we've done this before, similar, and we've never made anybody engineer a section line to my knowledge.
And I think that part of that is Joe's concern that it is in the wrong spot.
So Joe, do you have the ability to do the survey?
No, we don't. We don't have registered.
Can you come close?
Oops.
I'm
push the button.
not talking about an engineered, I'm just talking about determining whether or not the road is actually on somebody else's property.
I would say I don't think we should put the county highway in that liability to determine that. But if that's what your wish is, I don't. Sean, do we have the ability to survey that to make sure it's on the section line? Right. So we have the ability, I mean, we have GPS, but we're not registered land surveyors. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Sean was a surveyor. There's a lot of liability and work that goes into it. So it's not just as simple as going out there and saying, you know,
Just survey.
there's a lot, especially out there, trying to find a monument. Sean, I guess I can let you speak to how you would go about doing it, but it's quite an extensive process, you know.
We're trying to find a solution for you, sir, but the bottom line is you're gonna have some roadblocks anyway, not because we're trying to give you them, but you already know, you don't want someone, if that was your land above it, you don't want someone to put your property and then go, okay, you guys move that highway.
So I may have a solution. Cody Sack, environmental planner. Sean's major concern is there's just one portion of the section line where it comes straight down and then it veers off. Would be to, from that point where it veers off, to just head straight south. Because it's the part that veers off is the part that's in question if it's in or outside the section.
And why does it veer off?
We're not sure why.
Topographical.
So we just tell him to go straight and he's good.
So I would add that to that second condition or the third condition of the survey, that it either be surveyed if it's going to be done or the road's going to be constructed currently how it sits, or that the applicant head straight south from that point.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
a couple of questions, Cody. So maybe they could survey the area that is in question?
They could, nothing.
And based on that, they might have an idea if the rest is. And then the second question, you mentioned monuments, so is it typical, because nothing's been platted out there, where would you find monuments? Would you find monuments on the quarter, and on the corner of the section lines? I assume that there's monuments out there, so if it was surveyed, they'd have to find one of those monuments and work off of that?
Yes, if it was somebody, you know, somebody may have went and found a corner for when they were doing something and monumented themselves. The original corners are, if it's still the original corners and they're still there, they're stones. They're marked stones. So that, I mean.
Are those monuments, are they, you know, when you get to the top of a sector, township and range, you have government lots, and I'm assuming, are those monuments, were they put in there years ago by the government, or is that?
Yeah, so a lot of the government lots, when they were broke down, they break down the section as they get through and they're doing the old chaining. You get discrepancies in lengths, you know, going over topography, whatever. The government lots are basically the extra, the leftover of that township range, so.
So Jeff, go straight.
So Jeff, you heard that suggestion.
I don't have a problem with that if we can move forward.
And I'd ask you, Jeff, that Sean does surveying, not to survey it with him, but just ask him the questions before you build that last road. That's all I'd ask, because
Show me
he
where
would
it
know.
needs to go, and I don't have a problem with
Well,
that.
he's not going to tell you where it is to go because it's liability, but
Just
he will give you
suggestion?
suggestions.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
John, if you could. Okay.
Okay. I have a motion and a second.
With 3 conditions, correct?
I got a condition on there that I don't think is what was being discussed right now. Are you?
I'm okay with the friendly amendment.
A friendly amendment, which would allow them to build the road if they just straighten out the area that is in question.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
If the whole
Second. Is the second okay with
Yes.
that? Joe?
So there are some power poles that go down north-south to your property. Is that correct, sir? Yep. So if you, generally speaking, the power poles are probably going to be in the section line. So if you take the power poles and make sure you're a consistent distance off of them, you might even go so far as there's probably West River Electric out there, I would assume. So yeah, where I was going with that. So with the power poles being there, they probably might have a survey for when they put those power poles in there. You might reach out to them too, just to cover everybody. But most likely those power poles are in the section line.
That'd be a survey filed with us too?
Probably not with us. The West River Electric probably has those on file, I would assume, when they do that. Or it might even be an agreement with the landowner if it is on private property. But they would still have to survey it when they put those power poles in one way or another.
Sean would probably know that, Joe.
if for whatever reason the power poles are outside of that section line right of way, there should be a recorded easement with the power company and whatever landowner that crosses, if it's outside the section line right of way.
Okay. Kara,
Uh-huh.
do you have the motion?
Conditions. Got it.
Okay, got a motion and a second.
Do
Any
you
further
understand
discussion?
it, Jeff?
What's that?
Do you understand the motion?
Yeah, yep.
All those in favor?
One last thing.
Go ahead.
So if I can get that survey from West River, and if I can use that as my, I mean, if I measure and that road is on the clear, can I let you guys know or the highway department know so we don't have to have it resurveyed?
Ask.
That's what I believe the motion says.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Oskinen.
and if you work, if you go to the Register of Deeds, that easement will be recorded with your land or the adjacent land, so that's how you're going to find that easement
Okay,
relative to your legal description.
gotcha.
And I got one more thing I wanted to ask Cody. Cody, when this packet that I got, it just, it was in black and white, and it really didn't show me much, so in the future, this would be easier for me to look at, so I could get a broader idea where this is located and what was laying south and what was laying north.
Okay.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
Mr.
Thank you.
Item F.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. Item F is vacation of section line right-of-way VS 21-02 for the City of Rapid City. This item was continued from the February 1st, 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting. The Board of Commissioners asked to continue it for them to come back with a relocation location for this section line right-of-way in lieu of the vacation. The applicant did reach out to staff to ask if they could provide information on this for the board to reconsider that.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy.
Move to approve vacation section line right-of-way VS 21-02 with one condition.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Chairman, what's
Commissioner
the
Adcock.
condition?
It's that all necessary resolutions and exhibits vacating the section line right-of-way be recorded.
And that we're not gonna make them move a road? We're not gonna have them put another road in?
The motion wasn't for the relocation.
Okay, why I'm saying that is you have Radar Hill, major arterial, you have a minor arterial, which is south side, and you're shutting it off right in the middle with most of the time, if you're in the city, they make you relocate it if you're gonna shut off that. Can you see where the development is?
Mm-hmm.
And you see where Radar Hill Road is. So, Brittany, can you expand that a lot bigger? I'm not against taking out the road because that makes sense for security and everything else. But you're shutting off Southside Drive to Radar Hill Road. If it was just like a road way out there and it wasn't a minor arterial, just from Southside Road, there's a lot of development going on around there. If anybody's been out there lately. And Radar Hill Road is like I said, is one of those development areas. So, Stacy, you have a alternative route that would work? Okay. I see some of it, I guess, but. And I know there's major drainage areas there, Stacy, so, because of the creek.
Stacy Titus, City Rep, City Assistant Public Works Director. If I may have the opportunity to address the commission.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm here today representing the city on this request. I also have Jason Hines with FMG if we need engineering assistance. I had sent a letter last week to the commission as well as to Brittany explaining and justifying our rationale for not having to do a relocation as part of this vacation. In that letter, well, I'll back up a little bit. 1967 is when this plant was constructed. A lot of things happened in 1967. One was the plant was built right next to that section line. In 2018, Homeland Security conducted a infrastructure security survey for us on resiliency. And within that, there were a number of recommendations for securing our facility.
So that's really what triggered this vacation request, is we need to provide better security for that facility. The packet I gave you, the first exhibit, it's kind of rotated here, and I guess I'll ask, did everybody get one? I've got an extra copy if anybody needs that packet.
But Brittany, can you expand the picture to show where the development and stuff on like Elkvale and all those areas are, instead of just the FEMA map? Thank you. The proposed location is where compared to those developments right there? Like, is it like a mile away, half mile away, Stacy, from the developments over there?
This is the development on Southside Drive. This is subdivision. I can't remember. I'm going blank on it right now. It's a large subdivision in this section. Terracotta Estates is down here. Southside Drive goes this direction. Here is the wastewater treatment plant. Down here to the south is the Redemption Road subdivision area. So on that map, that's kind of the general location I believe you're looking at, Deb, would be these developments here.
So Stacy, you're right in the middle of where development is gonna move around you guys, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Brittany, how do I get back to my exhibit? Oh, there we go. This is, I guess, the map I kind of wanted to point out here. This is the flood hazard area map. The red area is the actual floodway, which no construction's allowed in. And then the other areas is the floodplain, which has limited development with, if you grade it, bring the finished floor elevations above the floodplain. So this area over here is very limited in the ability of a road to go through there. One, there would be a number of structures required across the creek. Very expensive for these property owners to put in a street or a function of a road like that. The next exhibit I have is the following page, and scroll down. Thank you, Brittany. This is the city's major street plan. This is an approved document that shows how transportation will circulate for future development and to serve the areas that are developable. This map shows that Southside Drive, and I appreciate, last meeting I did not know whether it was an arterial or a collector street. Southside Drive is considered a collector street. That's the green dashed line. An arterial street is the blue dashed line, which is Radar Hill Road. So connectivity from Anderson Road over to Radar Hill Road does need to happen for future development. The major street plan shows that Southside Drive basically gets relocated in this direction and manner in order for that transportation corridor to be facilitated. There has been right-of-way that's in here already, and right-of-way here. It's not been improved, but the right-of-way has been provided for the collector street configuration. So from my perspective, I'm asking the commission to look at it. There is not a transportation need for this right-of-way to be there. The practicality of constructing it for the floodplain and the floodway, and to relocate to the north when, again, it is city property that's right here on the north, and there's a floodplain and a floodway. So the logical location to relocate that right away is just exactly what the major street plan has. It's moved it to the south.
So Chairman.
Commissioner Hadgard.
So, Southside Drive is a collector on a section line, and the road
Yes.
is, that doesn't make no sense for an east-west location, Stacy, for maybe the city. Yeah, I guess I don't get that. I understand the floodway We built roads through floodway before because you can build parking lots. I think you can build roads in floodway. You're gonna have to have bridges and stuff, but bottom line, Stacy, is you're right in the middle and you're expanding the plant. I'm gonna say it up straight. Okay, so you guys already having stuff because you need expansion with smell and stuff. So
I would, there's a collector road directly to the north here on the map. So that is a collector road that connects Radar Hill Road and Anderson Road. There is a collector road that connects across here. And then this chunk of Southside Drive is also a collector and it ties into that. The city owns this property over here, this property here, this property here. It's all wastewater. So the development needs in here, it's the city of Rapid City.
well, I'm gonna ask you, if it was the city of Rapid City and there was development around there, would you shut off the middle of a road for somebody that's major? To me, I think it's a road south side to Radar Hill Road for people to get to their properties from outside, meaning over if we're coming across with that sewer water. Go ahead, Joe.
If I may, Stacy, can I borrow the computer here for a second? So it's something that just came to light here that neither Sean or I, or it doesn't sound like Brittany was even aware of. So you see down here, this section line has really technically already been relocated to here. If we go up here and we turn on the city's transportation plan here.
I guess that was my
Did I
question.
go by it already?
Where's the road going?
Yeah, I always miss it. There we go. We go to a major street plan. So what Stacy is saying here, right, is an accurate statement. This is right of way going through here. The city owns this property, so I think maybe what we would like to see as a highway department, I understand the city owns this property, maybe has no intention of selling it, but if they do sell it, we need to make sure this connects through so that this can get over to Radar Hill
So we're gonna
and
make that
coming
in
back up
writing?
here. What's that?
We're gonna put that in writing?
I mean, technically, the right-of-way's already been all
Right.
dedicated there, or so it appears.
Okay,
So-
I was wondering what the wide road was around it. That's why I'm saying, Stacy, if you have something and that's all I needed, where's the access around it? And then what's it going to? Because if it was the city, you already know, been in the city, what's your alternative and how we growing in the future? And you already know in the next 2 to 5 years, Southside Drive is not gonna look anything like it used to. Can I ask you one other thing with this is maybe on the road?
Sure.
Do you guys have a setback on how far is the setback on, or is there on this plant? You said security and different areas. It looks like it's built right to the edges of it.
The county setbacks that I'm aware of that are in existence today, I believe, are 25 feet. This plant would not meet that setback requirement on the section line we're trying to vacate.
No, I got the section line. I just didn't know if you had the 25 feet on the side because of development coming in the future. Like on
I believe that
be the,
this area here, we have an access road. The graphics here are not necessarily perfect,
There you
but this
go.
is a private road here. So our structures and our facilities are all on the east side of that. So from the section line, which is between the blue lines there, yes, I believe we meet our setback requirements with the county.
and are you county road standards or city road standards on that road? On the section line? Or you don't touch the section line yet? You're not building?
I'm not sure what standards with this road. This road was constructed when the subdivisions and the improvements were made down here for the development to the south. I'm
But
not sure what those standards were.
But the city doesn't have their side in that area. We were just talking about, you guys don't have that section line up to standards for,
We have not completed street improvements to meet city standards along this section line at this location. This is an existing county road.
so what would happen if development happened? Would the person that would do the development down below have to do that section?
I would probably defer
Joe?
to Brittany as to
Brittany?
what the county requirements would
Yeah.
be for
Because
development.
they're going to expand, right?
This would be in the 3-mile plating jurisdiction, so all of the road improvement requirements would go through the city in this area.
That's not fair. So we can't require you to do that where it's supposed to be, like you're gonna make us when we do ours, Stacy? No comment? Okay.
Okay,
Just saying.
any further questions? I have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Item G, public hearing of ordinance amendment 21-22.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ordinance Amendment 21-22 is to add Section 330 efficiency dwellings to the Pennington County zoning ordinance. The purpose of this ordinance amendment is to allow efficiency dwelling units, or in other terms, tiny homes, as conditional uses in some zoning districts of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. An efficiency dwelling or a tiny home is defined as a home that's less than 400 square feet, and it meets the requirements of the International Residential Code. So there are some very specific requirements under the International Residential Code for tiny homes. The purpose of this is to allow another form of housing in the area. You'll see in the other ordinance amendments that we are proposing that these are use by rights, meaning that there are not conditional use permit requirements. In agriculture district, in the event that you need some ranch hand type housing, this would be, that would fit that need. And in urban residential district, just because of the smaller lot sizes.
So Brittany, items G through J was a lot of material to try to read through and understand. My main concern on these is that we're not going through it to the point where we are adopting something that may need to be adjusted in the near future. So somehow or another, I need to have that confidence that this has been really reviewed and researched, and this is what we as a county want to adopt.
Okay.
So Chairman,
Commissioner Lassiter.
Brittany, a couple questions. And one is,
oh, sorry. I pressed it back.
one is, how did y'all come up with the final of 400 square feet? I mean, it can't be 450 or 500 square feet, or does that meet the requirements of something else? And I have a follow-up question to that too.
Sure. And when we did the research on this ordinance amendment, under the International Residential Code, that's what we followed. So in most other jurisdictions and under that requirement, that 400 square feet is the typical.
So,
Include the deck.
huh?
Include the deck.
No, there's another question I have to that. So it says it's got to be on a permanent foundation. Can it be a basement? So they could have a 400 square foot basement as well underneath this?
As long as it's a permanent foundation, yes.
Okay.
That is one of the differences with the efficiency dwelling. It's meant to be permanent housing, like a tiny home. So that's why it's on a permanent dwelling, or a permanent foundation.
And that's only interior measurements. It's not a deck or anything of that nature.
It does not include the deck or a loft area,
Gotcha.
Or a basement, right?
or a
what?
basement, no.
Or a
Or
basement.
the basement, okay. And then the last question I have, what size of home do we have above this that's allowed in the county? So this is the smallest home. Is there another minimum requirement for the next type of home that we allow in the county?
Yes, the minimum requirement for a stick-built dwelling in the county is a 20 by 20, which is 400.
Okay.
Which is what? Chairman,
Other questions? Commissioner Adcock.
so 20 by 20 is how many feet?
400 square feet. So that's what our current ordinance requires, is anything, that a stick-built structure has to be a minimum 20 by 20. This would allow a structure below that, basically a tiny home. Right now, we have no other avenue other than a conditional use permit, but we don't have any standards for a tiny home in
What
our
are mobile
ordinance.
homes? What's the
Mobile
size
homes
of
are
those?
completely separate.
I
These
know,
are
but-
stick-built.
I know, but what is a mobile home? What is their dimensions? Are they?
1,200 square feet, so.
Minimum for those are
By
14
20?
by 56. So that's the minimum.
Bigger
in
than
that.
these?
Yes.
Yeah, these things are small.
Mr. Chair,
I'm not against these in one sense, but I don't know, you're gonna make a big community of, what's the other standards around it? People, I'm not against mobile home parks or anything, because I like mobile homes, but now the city won't let you have mobile home parks, in different areas for a reason, and these are smaller than that. And then we are building, right now, people want to build smaller places and stuff like that. What do you end up with? Depending
Chair.
on the area, you know what I'm saying? Not that I don't want to make, I don't mean to mean, because I want to make people be able to be affordable or whatever you're talking about, but can you imagine how many you could pile in? And how many can you pile in one area before it becomes not good?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Oskinek first.
Okay.
so Brittany, Mike, I guess a good example of one of these would be a park model like down at the lake. They got to be, a park model's got to be less than 400 square feet. And they're self-contained. They got the one bedroom, they got the living room, they got the kitchen. Some of them have lofts. And that concept, I think, Jim Skull, the one that he's doing in Hill City on that 34, his lots are fairly small, but there is the city, Rapid City has a zoning ordinance specific to these park models, and it identifies your parking area, how close they can be to each other. So there is some kind of a plan for park models as far as density. It's just for the people that don't want a large,
Get that?
that they can cohabitat in a smaller 400 feet or less. But the one question I got, Brittany, is on design requirements. Number 4B3, it says have an additional 100 square feet of floor area for each occupant in excess of 2. And how do you get that 100 square feet was my question.
Well, the 400 square feet is the maximum, so you could have smaller ones. So if you have more than two people, you'd have to have at least 200 square feet.
Chairman.
Yeah, these are pretty small units. And just for clarification, these are intended to be a single-family residence. That means the principal use on the property. It's not meant to have multiple ones. That would have to
5
fall
people,
under.
10 people in them at once?
Hold on,
That would
Bill.
fall under the mobile home park requirements. So if you look at the mobile home park requirements, if they wanted to have more of them, they would. This is just another option. We do have quite a bit of individuals that come to our counter that ask for these tiny home type options. It's not that they want multiple ones on property. They would just like to have this on their property, because they are more of a simple type use. But they would be considered a single-family residence and a principal use.
Commissioner Laster.
So to answer your question there, Commissioner Hadcock, I've actually done a lot of research into this because we've looked at it as an option. Tiny homes are like a thing, they build them to a very high spec quality, and then they move them to a property and put them on. Now, obviously, you can probably buy crummy ones too, but there's a whole movement for these tiny homes for people who want to have a small footprint, a small efficiency place so that they can live, maybe a couple on a single kid, and basically have a very small footprint. And a lot of them actually do this, and then they RV a lot of times. So this is kind of a growing thing that where they're doing this, and then they RV half the time, and then they come back to a base of operations, if you will.
But it's more affordable housing and stuff too, but most of the time when you see things, I'm okay if it's single family, but single family with 10 people in the house and 5 people, we have that in our motels. So if we allowed that, we're different than other motels. Depending on how many people, you're not limiting how many people can live in that house. So what you can end up with, just kind of like when we had our motels, we had 4 and 6 people living in a 1-bedroom motel with 2 beds. You see where I'm going? So how does that make this different? Because we want to make people be able to live and do things right, but then what if you end up with a whole development like that?
Commissioner Hadcock, I'm going to stop you there because Commissioner LaCroy had asked permission to speak first. Commissioner LaCroy.
I understand what you're talking about, Deb, but I think we're getting too far ahead. I think you know what we're talking about with tiny homes, because we talk about making them, equalization was counting them permanent over on Bear Creek. These are fine. If you go out to Hunt Ranch, you'll see these are very well-built homes. One of the reasons why we start going through what they call them efficiency homes is our assisted homes is, and what the city has done is being able to add them to your property, because quite frankly, parents are end up living in, or kids are living with their parents, are taken care of vice versa on the same property. That was one of the reasons why. But there are communities out there with these, I like the efficiency, named them. In fact, I think Sioux Falls doing one with the veterans. They're a veteran community of these efficiency homes. I mean, I look at one property that I purchased quite a few years ago. 700 square feet is what it is. You know, back in the 1930s, that's what some of them built, and I've got one that's 1950 that's just under 900 square feet. Used to raise families of 5. But I don't see these homes as being that route. These are meant for one single to double companies. And I think you're just clarifying the ordinance of what these are.
Correct. Right now, they would just be a conditional use permit. We did have no basic standards for them. The International Building Code, or International Residential Code, actually has very specific guidelines for these. That way you're not getting, because people have converted storage containers and all different kinds of things as efficiency dwellings, and that's fine, but at least this gives us a standard. Right now, we don't have that, and that would shore that up. And if there is, we are proposing it in urban residential and agriculture. If that's something, not the residential districts, and you want them as conditional uses in all districts, then that can be stricken from, the ordinance, if you would like them to be conditional uses in all districts. We just picked those districts. One was because of lot size in urban residential, and the second for agriculture is that you have a lot of properties in agriculture that have multiple parcels or descriptions or quarter sections. This would allow them in an agricultural property to have a dwelling maybe on the other side of their property. So, for a ranch hand or while they're calving or something like that. So they have a place to be without having a full-blown type structure or home and having to meet that standard. So that was the preface between those two districts.
Commissioner Adcock.
So it does have a conditional use permit?
Not in urban residential and agriculture. And I would say if the concern is not having it in urban, then I would strike that, and recommend it in agriculture, because I do think that there is a desire, and I think that the size of the lots that those would be on, it wouldn't be, you're looking at a minimum 10 acres, and it would provide another opportunity for a ranch hand or other ability.
And I guess that's where I was going, not making developments into 6,500 square feet. So the urban, I would strike the urban, do agriculture, because efficiency is the word in that. I guess that's my point. And then they could always do a conditional use or come back for a board of adjustment or something saying, I need a efficiency dwelling for, whatever. But I'd keep it in agriculture if I were you, just because it made sense. That's why we did it in the first place.
Further questions? Is there a motion?
My motion, Chairman.
Commissioner Adcock.
So if I didn't want it to put it in urban, how do I make the motion then?
So under section C2AI, oh, sorry.
I would just suggest that we continue it if that's what the Board of Commissioners want to do, so that way we can fix it properly, and we're not piecemealing and trying to write legislation up here.
Commissioner, okay with that?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek?
would maybe we have a meeting set up for May the 25th, a planning meeting? Could this be something that we could extend until that meeting so that we could hash this over in that type of environment? Or would that be too long to take any action on this?
It's up to the commission. I do know that we have a lot of requests for these,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean,
Well,
there's still an avenue for them to get them under the conditional use permit process. But if that's,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I'd be in favor of continuing this, because I think we need a little bit of discussion on this, because quite frankly, I'm in favor of having them in urban, so I'd want to know what some of the restrictions and stuff would. So I think to give me a little more time to go through this,
Okay.
I'd like at least the next commission meeting.
Chairman, I agree, just to look at the urban and what you guys were thinking and where we're going with it, so I'm in agreement as well.
I'd make a substitute motion to continue to our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, so the substitute motion was to continue until when?
What was the first motion?
There wasn't one.
Okay, so
Oh,
it's
there
just a
was-
regular
It-
motion.
Well, we had a motion, but we didn't have a second to it, so.
Okay, so I'd
There's our start of a motion.
Okay, so.
So this is the
Troy,
motion.
motion to continue to
March 1st.
March 1st.
And I seconded.
Got a motion and a second to continue until March 1st. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Is that going to affect the rest of these?
It'll affect item H and I. So those would have to be continued to
So
the March
moved.
1st meeting.
H and I.
H and I.
Second.
Who made the motion then?
She said so move to
Okay,
continue.
Commissioner Adcock moved to move H and I to next meeting, seconded by Commissioner Laster. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Down to J.
Item J is public hearing of ordinance amendment OA 21-25 for Pennington County to amend the subdivision regulations of the Pennington County zoning ordinance. The planning commission did recommend approval of this ordinance amendment. The purpose of this was to update the subdivision regulations to address changes in developments and standards. I can just go briefly through here. Staff is going to recommend to continue this because there are some such changes that we need to make on one of the sections regarding the certificates that have to go on the plat, so.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion to continue this also.
Is this to the next meeting as well?
No, we would prefer it to go to March 15th because the state's attorney's office would like to re-advertise it, so there is ample opportunity to look at those
Is
changes.
that the motion?
To May 25th, you said?
The 15th, I think is,
15th of March?
yes.
So
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Got a motion to continue item J until March 15th. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Items from the chair and commission members. Okay. Who wants to start?
I'll start. Holly is aware of this, but I just recently had another conversation with the EPA and the ATS DR and the base concerning the March 22nd meeting for the PFAS PFOA issue. It looks like we're going to be a go for March 22nd for sure, and it's going to be between 3 and 5, and so far we've got it scheduled to be here in the commission chambers. I'm going to be talking with the EPA on Thursday to discuss logistics on that, and then I'll discuss with Holly for any of that stuff to get passed around for any event to be made aware of. But it's going to be so that the base, the EPA, and the ATSDR can give a presentation of where they're at with the PFAS, how it impacts different things, gardening, watering livestock, and what determinations they've made at this point in time, and then probably the plan moving forward. It'll also have time for public comment during that meeting as well. So that'll be March 26th here at the county. More to come as we get final information on that. I mean, what did I say?
26th.
Yeah, March 22nd, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here reading numbers on my thing, so. Also, we took the tour to the Rapid Valley Sanitary District building and discussed some of their future plans. And February 3rd, I was in Pierre talking to legislators, and a lot of conversation, since they knew that I was a county commissioner, came up about the county being able to do a tax, based on the bond, and other conversations about county and tax and either sales tax and things of that nature. So had a lot of those different conversations, and it seems like a lot of the legislators are, running through those bills. I know we talked about them a little bit earlier, but just many of those legislators have all these bills on their mind because they're hearing from their constituents or they're hearing from others concerning those. Outside of that, we had one meeting that was dealing with some of the road issues and expansion in the district as well. That was a pretty good meeting and a very informative meeting. Outside of that, I'll wait until we get to committee reports unless you want me to do my Rapid City Public Library one because it's the only one I have.
No, Commissioner LaCroy.
A couple things that I did was, well, I did have a meeting with Joe and Travis and Rusty at the Highway Department discussing future expansion of Rapid Valleys, or sanitary sewer districts, just some good old discussions and ideas that were thrown out. And then I also had a meeting on Friday and retoured the Rapid Valley Sanitary, water treatment plant with Gary and Rusty and some of them guys, and went through some discussions on that. So if you haven't seen Rapid Valley Sewer, the footprint's a lot smaller. Rusty's very good at explaining things, and I give Rusty a hard time because we both had that Kaizen training, which is continuous improvement, and so everything's color coded, everything has a place. And if you look on this tool boards, every tool board's where it's supposed to be. Everything's less steps, more efficient. That's what kind of training that you have. But so we did do that. And the other thing that I did, I've had my typical Human Relations Commission meeting last week. We're planning a retreat next month. But I also attended the Youth City Council meeting, and we're coordinating with Regina to do a presentation to the Youth Council and former Commissioner Mark DeSanto. We're talking about trying to, the environmental committee for the Youth City Council, they're trying to want to work together and do some type of PSA. I wanted to say the other way. For littering and stuff, and that comes from Mark's driving around through the hills with weed and pest, and feels the need to have PSA with, and the kids are involved with that, so they're going to present next month. Otherwise, that was it.
Okay, a couple items. On February 3rd, at the request of Box Elder, I did meet with city staff in regard to housing needs in the future planning. That'll carry on to another thing I report under committee reports too. But on February 11th, Holly put together a group of the Pennington County departments to discuss future plans for the Rapid Valley. I thought it was a great discussion. Many good things came out of that, of people working together to figure out, where we need to be going. Obviously, will need to be follow-up on that also. And then, as Lloyd said, toward the Rapid Valley Sanitary District facilities, also on that date, hosted by Rusty Schmidt. Very informative, very educational. Commissioner Roskinek.
I met with Phil Schiff, he's the fire chief of Silver City, and Jim Gubbles, who's the district ranger for Mystic District. We met at Jim's office on Highway 16, and we discussed how we could go forward trying to find a piece of land for the future Silver City Fire Department. Originally, it looked like it might be an actual acquisition where they could have a piece of land and they could own it to put this fire station on. But as we went through the process, we believe that the fastest and best solution would be doing a special use permit with the Forest Service. And that would, it'd be like a lease agreement, and it would be 30 years in length. So after that meeting, they asked Phil, the site that Silver City originally wanted, we think would be in a floodplain or a flood zone. It just didn't seem to work. So yesterday I got an email from Phil, and he's found another site, and he wants to be as close to the intersection of 385 and Rochford Road as possible because that's the area that they're going to service. So he's found another site that he likes, and he submitted that to me, and he submitted it to Jim yesterday. And so we agreed that once they found another site that we'd meet again and just keep going forward. I did, the Rochford Fire Department is involved with a 30-year or 20-year special use permit. That's how their facilities in a similar situation. I sent that to Jay for Jay to review and his comments. So obviously, if you have a piece of land that you own, that's better, but our idea was to get a fire department in place for 20 to 30 years, and with the special use permit, I think we could still do that. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's, when you consider the timing, it probably is the best. And then last Thursday, I was asked to meet with Jeff Tomac. He's a supervisor of the Black Hills National Forest. And he's doing in the next 3 to 4 years, he's going to do a forest plan. And that's going to be the roadmap of how the Black Hills National Forest is going to run for the next 15 to 20 years. One of the concerns that we have is the amount of harvestable timber, which, that's one of the reasons that Rushmore Forest Products closed down in Hill City. So there's 5 counties that I think want to work with have some input on that. And so we would be considered a cooperating agency. And Jeff would like for a representative from each of the 5 counties to meet with him. I offered to do our conference room for the first meeting. So we had schedules made up that shows where the other counties meet so that he can try to pick a time that all 5 counties can be present with him and discuss the MOU, which would be your memorandum of understanding with the county and the Forest Service. So that meeting is in the process of getting scheduled, and I certainly offered, because District 1 is mostly in the Black Hills National Forest, I offered to be the one from our commission to attend that meeting, but it's not to say that Scott Guffey would be invited, but Jeff wanted this meeting to be pretty much between him and the commissioners, but you could have others there just to take notes and keep up to speed.
I appreciate you and Scott stepping up and working on that.
So those are the 2 major ones for me.
Commissioner Adcock.
Mine was hard rock mining. I went for an hour and a half before my fire service board the other night. That was very interesting. I know I talked to Brittany, and she is going to be looking at some changes to it. There's some areas where the man from School Mines, he came in, and he's going to help them with some of their but there's surface mining, and there's underground mining, and some other stuff that were kind of missed in there. But bottom line is they're working on it, and it takes a while to get it right. They did, planning department is, like I said, is moving forward on that, and I thought that was pretty cool that they're just looking in all aspects. That was the first public hearing, so I think that's the first of many. We don't have any hard rock mining at this time in Pennington County. We have some exploration, if I'm correct, but it's just good to get ahead of that game, and I appreciate the planning department and what they've done. And just, like I said, it was just interesting to listen to people and what the planners had. I also went to the Rapid Valley Sanitation Department. That was pretty awesome. Rusty is a good guy. Really updated everything, and with the nanotechnology from the fibers to the stones, and just, it was interesting to learn the temperature, the chlorine, and just all the different gauges, and the place is so absolutely clean. He needs to come to my house. So that's just very organized, and I thought that was pretty awesome. Then we all sat around and talked, like you said, about future use of Pennington County, our land, and different stuff in Rapid Valley, and where he's going, where he thinks it might be beneficial to us. I know we talked about Twilight maybe I talked to Gary about that being major arterial, doing some commercial, doing some other stuff in there to make sense. It was a very good meeting with Brittany and Travis and Joe and Jason and Sean, just to kind of see the overall picture of what they were talking about. I know Brittany and Joe have really been involved with Sharon and other people on the future use of Rapid Valley and different areas where our growth should be or would be for the future. I also had some discussions on the 3 mile and 1 mile. I don't know that we do anything too much to the mile, but 3 mile with the plating, state law, state rule or ordinance on what the city does, but there's got to be, and I know you've been working on that, Gary, and we tried before, remember, with the mayor to do this, but there's got to be something different that works for county and city for that, like we said today, trying to make that work for both sides and not affect the other because you won't annex it because we're doing this, but you're the one that platted it. And I'm not blaming or anything. I think both sides ended up doing what they did for reasons at the time, but it needs to be different now if we're going to make better city and counties. How about that for the future? Because we've got some development coming and everything happens for a reason to move things forward and for people to kind of, in a sense, wake up to what we're really doing in Rapid City, so, and Pennington County. So I think there's some really good discussions, and I've been pretty excited about listening to all the different pieces and parts and how those are coming together. And thank you, Holly, for some of your stuff. Other than that, I think instead of Fire Service Board, I think we.
Yeah, start your committee report then.
Okay, so the 3 towers should be up and completed for the radio towers by April, they're hoping. So everybody was wondering about the towers by April, hopefully. And then I know there's concerns with Bill 1203 amending tax districts for the firemen. I don't know if that went through, Holly, or you knew anything about that, Bill 1203?
1203 was killed.
Guild.
Good, thank you. And then there was Bill 51 on monies for the burn tower. Anybody know any update on that? And I apologize because this was last Wednesday. And Senate Bill 90 on the marijuana districts for sprinkler systems and stuff like that. No, okay. Those were some of the discussions. They were really good discussions on those. Also, I know Kevin Carley, who just does an amazing job in his 911 people, at putting some fire accreditation into 911. They have a lot of accreditations with different companies, or however you say state. That's pretty cool. What that says is they are getting trained and they are doing the right things once they're accredited. Not that they aren't already, but it just gives you that extra paper that says, we're doing things right. We've done it by state rules and the rules that are set forth for them. So, and they're going to try to find another third person for fire because that's how many calls they've been having and how much time they need. So Kevin Carley, thank you for your time. And he always comes with different people from his group. So he's just a good guy trying to make the difference there. Let's see, anything else? I don't think so. I think that's the main issues there. So I just think the Fire Service Board, they're trying to get those towers or those places done. And you guys already know the surveys. That's crazy. I never thought the surveys would be the one holding them up, but trying to get those surveys done and stuff for those 3 different areas. But they're pretty excited about moving forward. So thank you for your
On the
help.
burn tower, Commissioner, I think that's probably going to be held right towards the end. It'll probably be lumped in with a number of other things of one-time money spending items. And so I think that discussion is probably down the road yet before that'll actually be held.
And like ours, for our budget to see what's left. Thank you.
Commissioner Roskinek, committee.
First of all, I got a question for Holly. Have we found a person to fill Sandy Rundy's place?
We received 2 applicants. It closed Friday at 4:00. I'm working to schedule the 2 interviews for next week.
So is it too late for people to put their application in?
For this round, yes.
Okay, that was my question.
If the board doesn't support either one of those applicants, we would reopen it back up.
Okay. Building committee, one of the things that we talked about quite a bit was the proposed ARPA funds, and it's my understanding that we have $22 million out there, and that 10 million, we can do whatever we want with. We can use it for building, we can use it for roads, we can use it for bridges. Well, that was my understanding, but 12 million is, they got to follow that, some pretty strict criteria. And one would be, how did COVID impact the county, and how do we sit there and put a monetary value to that and try to submit some kind of an application that would support our request? So one of the items that qualify would be housing. And so we allocated $2 million to Pennington County Housing and Redevelopment. That's affordable housing. So the question was, could we take 2 million out of that 12 million, put it back into that project, and then could we take the 2 million that we gave and put it back into our general fund? And we also looked at doing the same thing with the Crisis Stabilization Center, money that we had that we put towards it, that if that would qualify, that we could put it towards that project and pull some of that funding back. And the whole idea was to get the entire $12 million through various projects that would qualify.
I think Holly and probably Cindy are working on developing questions that we can submit as to how we can use it. But I think basically the whole 22 million is really under pretty heavy criteria. There's a limit I know that they came out with. So let's say that we could use 10 million for the jail project, but we're limited at that 10 million for that wastewater project over there. So I think, and I don't think we've delved into it any further than that at this point in time, as to identify actual projects that it could be used for, so.
I'm just looking at my notes here that for the minutes for the building committee, it says 10 million can be used for government services, can be given to any project. So that's just what I'm reading off of this.
Good
Jay?
afternoon. How are you? Jay Alderman with State's Attorney's Office. That's something that Tracy and I have been looking into with Cindy. And what we're learning is that there's not a lot of people, even around the state as we speak, that have any expertise in this. And it's about a 500-page document that lays out the summary or overview plus the details. And it's just, frankly, it's a lot of circles that you got spinning in. And so as I was in the hallway and I could hear you talking about this, give you a little bit of background. My understanding is you're right. We're receiving 22 million. I think we've received 12 already, and we're going to get another 10, or we've received 11 and we're going to get 11, somewhere in there. There's a couple things you can do on what's called general government services. And those are the things that the government just generally provides. You know, you provide law enforcement, you provide jails, the courts, you provide funding for all the different offices and departments, just the general things that your budget provides every year. That's just called general services. They offer two options on government services. They assume, and they did a bunch of studies, they being the U.S. Treasury, the federal U.S. Treasury did studies. And near as I can tell, they came up with a $10 million estimate of what they assume every local unit of government probably lost in revenue due to COVID, due to the pandemic. And so they give you an option. You can select a one-time, I can't remember if they call it allowance or whatever it is, but you can select a one-time 10 million. And you, as Mr. Roskinek said, you can use that 10 million virtually however you want. So you could put it all into the jail, you could put it all into housing, you could put it into the courts, you could put it into roads, because they make the assumption, they declare you lost that revenue specifically due to COVID. Go ahead and reimburse yourself for any projects. The next 12 million. Well, let me back up. Or you can go through, if you are going to receive more than 10 million, which we are, you can go through what appears to be a very painstaking, detailed forensic accounting of your lost revenues, if you can relate them all back to the pandemic, COVID-related losses of revenue. And then of that 22 million, if you could prove that and show that and file that and convince the U.S. Treasury that you're accurate, you could use all 22 million for anything you want. I think Cindy, if she were here right now, probably would hate me saying, because I don't think it's anywhere close to that we could show. That's kind of been my impression from Cindy, and then just the ability to try to put it right down to a pencil or a paper clip would be an arduous task. So you have those two options. Just select the 10 and run with it.
or go through a much more lengthier formula process to try to get more of that 22 million for just general purposes. So let's assume we do the 10. That leaves the 12 million, right, that we will eventually receive. That's where it gets far more complicated, frankly, and head scratching, is trying to relate. There's multiple layers. If you want to do something for housing, then there's a low income housing component in the formula, and you have to tie it to a community or individuals. There's a million other things for dispatch, law enforcement, premium pay for employees that have to work, say, at the jail, if you have an area of the jail that is for COVID patients or inmates. So people who are exposed to COVID-related personnel on a daily basis, maybe some Barry's folks, they can get premium pay and some other overtime pay for some of those services, but it has to be hugely documented, and it's fairly arduous and not completely understood by all of us just yet. So it's a complicated matter. We're still literally working on trying to figure out some of those things, like Ron's talking about, maybe reimbursement for the 2 million to Pennington County Housing, because I think probably what they use, they would be considered what's called a sub-recipient. Pennington County's recipient, they would be a sub-recipient. The people that benefit are called beneficiaries. So we can give money to a sub-recipient, such as Pennington County Housing, and then they can use it for an eligible purpose that you would have to convince the U.S. Treasurer that we got it right, that 2 million. And I think how they're using it probably qualifies. It would shock me if it wouldn't, because it kind of makes sense that it should.
And I think the Crisis Stabilization Center, we thought we had a lot of support for that too.
Yeah, that's another one, because it talks about in that 500 pages a lot about treatment. There's an assumption that obviously COVID has created a lot of mental health and substance abuse issues with local populations. So there's an assumption that that would be a good thing to use your money on to provide care and treatment and so forth for those individuals. So that's another area that we feel pretty comfortable you could put quite a bit of money into the treatment over there, detox, drug and alcohol, mental health, et cetera. So
we have access to Bailey consultation on this also. So any and all of these questions probably should be submitted to them. They are doing this service for a number of states, entities within a number of states. And so I would suggest that I don't know how we're gathering up all the questions, if that's going through State's Attorney's Office, Cindy's office, Holly. I don't know how we're collecting these kinds of questions, but I think that in our best interest, since they are being held out as the one that is going to take specific questions and follow it through and see whether or not it qualifies, that would be an outside source that I would say maybe carries considerable credibility with the U.S. Treasury Office then also. So,
well, I know that the kind of the clearinghouse, if you will, for Pennington County will end up being the auditor's office for obvious reasons. So I think that information, if she doesn't already have it, should be in her hands with lists of proposed requests or ideas, so we can formulate it in something that we can give to this individual.
Yep.
Because that would be helpful, because we really haven't received what I would call any meaningful outside consultation from folks who appear to have been either trained or have experience in answering some of those questions.
I also suggested that we consider hiring an individual that would just do nothing but administer this for all the departments, instead of trying to have the department heads take time out of their busy schedule to try to figure it out. But the question is where do you find an individual that has any experience in something that has never been presented before?
Yeah, and to some extent.
Holly. kidding.
I was gonna nominate Ron.
But yeah, I agree. Obviously, the concern is if you don't get it right and you're audited and they find some mistake or error
you.
or perceived failure, then you get to reimburse them. And that would be, we'll say, after you've spent it.
Yeah,
Which would be the
that's right.
worst case scenario.
Comes out of Jay's pay.
So that's why everyone's kind of tense over it, to make sure it's done perfectly, and that's what's been kind of a difficult
Yeah.
project.
Well, and I don't think we need to save up questions until the very end. I think we can be submitting those questions to Ide Bailey at any time. We've already paid for the service. And so I think we should be submitting questions of getting some clarification on it now. So, okay. Thank you, Jay.
The auditor has that information, or do you know?
Well, when I had spoken with Cindy, she said we could go ahead and submit the questions to Jennifer at Black Hills Council Local Governments, just make sure that we CC Cindy, Casey, Jay, Tracy, so that everybody's on the same,
Right.
same path. But yeah,
Okay.
it's all, make sure we all communicate with each other. But yes, we can do that at any time.
Thanks. Sorry to be so winded, but I got
okay.
to talk to you anyway. Thanks for coming to my assistance. Absolutely.
Welcome back.
The only other thing that we really talked about was the facility needs assessment that's currently going on. And according to my notes, county government may grow by approximately 200 to 300 employees over the next 15 to 20 years. So if you grow the 200 to 300 employees, you're going to need facilities to put some of those employees. So then we brought up the Great Western Bank property, which would be the three-story bank that First Interstate acquired here a couple weeks ago. And I think some of their big brass from Billings relative to the Scott family are in Rapid City this week, trying to figure out what they're going to do with that building and the 28,000 square foot lot that lays adjacent to the Lamplighter property. There's a lot of options out there, but until and we have Chris Long working with Scott Ryman, who's the president of First Interstate Bank here in Rapid City. So he'll, sooner than later, let us know what some of the options are if we decide to go that direction. And then Elevate Rapid City, evidently Gareth has been in contact with Mike, expressing interest in our property, the Lamplighter, because of some high-density high-rise that is supposed to be going in here. And I told Mike, I said, really, we should be trying to buy property, not selling property right now, especially the stuff in close proximity to our campus. So hopefully that dialogue doesn't continue. Pretty much for the building committee.
Okay. So going back to February 3rd, Commissioner LaCroix and I met with the mayors of Rapid City and Box Elder, along with Brittany, to discuss joint efforts of at least these three entities are working together on future planning in the 1 and 3 mile zones, and especially in the Rapid Valley area. This all ties in with what Holly was doing also at her meeting, so there's been lots of discussions taking place as how we move forward in the future. But so at that meeting, we discussed the possibility of the three entities sharing the use of a planning engineer or project engineer, or whatever that person may be called, to assist in maneuvering through this process of pulling all the information together. City of Rapid City is doing what I think they call a development assessment right now that should be completed yet this year. Box Elder is doing a housing need assessment at the present time, but and then I think Elevate is also doing one for the entire area, which probably goes beyond Pennington County, probably out in Meade County and so forth. So I think, just being able to pull all this information together as it's being completed and come up with some sort of a master plan from that will be of great beneficial to us.
Can I ask you a question, Gary? So with all the apartments being built, which are a lot of apartments, plus houses, I mean, do they have a total anywhere? I mean, we have building permits and stuff like that because there's like clusters of huge apartment houses.
Yeah.
So we're thinking we need 3,000 houses plus all the apartments, or are we counting the apartments with it?
Counting the apartments with it. What they're saying right now is we're about 3,000 units, housing units short. That includes houses, apartments, et cetera. And Elevate has just put on staff a housing specialist. Laura Jones is working that part of it. So she's also pulling together information on that. She's really a new employee for them, but
I'm meeting with
yeah.
her, she wants to meet with me on Friday, and then a couple like Garth, and so that'd be interesting. She's actually pretty amazing. When I went to the Elevate, very aggressive in a good way, meaning, you know what I mean, smart.
She's
So I
got some
think,
good background that
Yep.
may be really beneficial for us.
and she came with one of her husband that was moved here, so
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
So also, last night, Commissioner Roskinick and I attended the Central States Fair Board meeting. All the reports relative to the Black Hill Stock Show were pretty exciting to hear. Large crowds, I mean, maybe, I don't know how much credit you give to the weather, but the weather was really nice during that whole period of time. And so we had large crowds. The vendors appeared to be very pleased. They had to relocate 27 vendors from previous because of the way the new layout is. And a lot of those vendors had expressed a lot of very pessimistic about how their new location would work, even at the start of it. But at the end, most of those all reported that, you know, their traffic was up, they were really happy with it and so forth. So feared that it worked out well. The ranch rodeo actually sold out 4 hours before the doors opened. And so, which is kind of interesting. We've never had a sellout or something like that before. But the rodeos were very successful overall. We also heard the audit report for the last year relative to both the Central States Fair and the foundation. Both are sitting in good financial position. And the entire staff, I mean, we try to thank them, but at the same time, I mean, they need to be acknowledged that all the way through from the maintenance on up to the top, need to be commended for the work that they did and the comments that have come back from participants, vendors, whoever, have heard hardly anything negative relative to the Black Hill Stock Show. So it was a very good show. So the only other thing that comes to my mind right now is that I was a little bit surprised when I saw that the PDO had already acquired space. I know that we had dealt with that during the budget process, but in my own mind, I'm thinking that probably then goes to, when they need space, that probably needs to be a request that goes to Buildings and Grounds. And I don't know if it comes to the building committee or not, but it just seems like there should be something where it actually filters back to this commission.
Yeah.
Which didn't happen. So I think we need to pursue direction on how that would happen in the future. So, Commissioner LaCroix.
Well, on that note, I second that with PDO. I think we should have been informed somehow or another that they did a satellite office besides a request for a refrigerator. I'll shoot an email out after today.
Just as a brief update, I did ask Cindy about the lease, and it's Cindy's opinion that that lease should have been brought to the Board of Commissioners for signature, so we're kind of looking into the legal side of it. I just sent Jay an email if that lease is valid with Eric signing it, or if it needs to be done by the board, so we're having conversations about that, because yeah, it should
Okay.
have been brought to the board.
Okay. At least brought to the PDO board. Okay. All right. Okay. Gary covered the city-county meeting. I have to admit that was a good meeting. I mean, Mayor Allender and Brittany and I can't remember their public works guy. He was attendance. But I mean, there was great Kurt. It was great conversation, and then, you know, I mean, that was some of the things that come out of a bad situation. I think everybody's coming together to look at a regional, not only regional water stuff that we've talked about, but also what Gary had mentioned with trying to come up with a plan and someone to do that. So that was a positive thing. I attended the building committee. It's been a couple of years since I'm there, and I really appreciated how I thought the agenda was a little long for the building committee. I mean, you couldn't get through it all. There was no, a lot of it had to do with the funds, which that ate up most of the meeting. How to work through some of those funding, so that ate up a lot of it. But some of the needs that we have that come to light, come to my attention was kind of surprising. But I mean, some of them I knew, but knowing how much where they were on the priority and getting an update on them, I think we have a lot of needs, and when we start talking about spreading some of this funding out to different entities, I mean, we really got to take a look at what our needs are first, and I think that facility needs that's going to come forward is going to really answer a lot of our questions if we're going to look to be going out 10, 20 years from now. So otherwise, that was a good meeting. The special, I kind of drew the card that I've got 4 planning commissions this month. So, yeah.
Yay, you.
Actually, I didn't mind this one. It was at 5 in the evening, special one, and it was on the hard rock mining. And the sense of the whole meeting was appreciation from everybody that showed up that Pennington County is doing a hard rock mining ordinance, getting ahead of the game. Brittany and her crew did a very good job of explaining to the people that were out there that, we can't just add on and make things more restrictions and do that like we'd like to do. We got to follow federal and state, and local. And I think they understood that, but they stressed their importance on water. The biggest one was water contamination or recycling. So that was the biggest concern that come forward. But I can guarantee you about everybody that came up that made that comment, they appreciated that Pennington County moved forward on this. Otherwise, that's it.
Commissioner Lassiter.
Well, the only thing I had was the Rapid City Library Board, and it was pretty much not all that exciting, except that they did have a library survey, basically to do strategic planning. That was a pretty good presentation, so they're gonna, we're gonna evaluate some of the recommendations from that and move forward. One of the things that we talked about that's probably the most important for public is they get a lot of complaints about material that's in the library. And then whenever they refer them to go fill out the documentation about what do you have a problem with and whatnot, no one will fill it out. So if you do have a problem, it's not enough to come tell them that you have a problem with material. You have to come and you actually have to make that problem known by documenting what you believe is wrong with the material. So that's probably the big thing that we discussed was whenever individuals complain about material that's in there that they feel maybe inappropriate or whatnot, but there's a process for that, and most of the time when they tell people to fill it out, they don't fill it out, so just something to be aware of. They are gonna be changing some of their criteria of who can check out what material and how, based on definition of resident in the county and all that, so they're looking at that policy as well. And so there may be some changes to that based on, some of the things that they have is like, America's Way and stuff. They're considered residents, but they don't even live here, but then they're wanting all this access, and then they don't necessarily have the volume to be able to meet the needs of those in the local area that are actually here. So they're looking at that to figure out some changes on that. But outside of that, that was probably the bulk of the conversations was policies.
Super. The other thing I'll add too is the Cracker Barrels. If you want an opportunity to speak about a piece of legislation or pieces of legislation, probably the best time to do it is to go catch your local legislators at the Cracker Barrel. Emails, they're informing me, are not being effective this year because of a couple of issues that have just loaded them up. Dave Johnson said he had over 5,000 emails he hasn't even had a chance to open yet. So if you want to make personal contact with them, they suggested telephone call, or text. They're much more receptive to that at this point in time, so.
Thanks for that, Gary, because I'm getting texts from some people too and that seems to work out best for me.
Yep, yep,
People always got their phone in their hand.
yep. Or tracks here.
One more update, I forgot about it. The library did get in a whole bunch of free, COVID tests, and they're giving those out as well, if you
Okay.
want to get COVID tested.
Not from me, but.
Need a motion to go to executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to come out of executive session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to come out of executive session. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinick.
move for a pay change for Joe Doran from B 31, step 6, $26.16 an hour to B 24, step 8, $27.09 an hour, effective January the 24th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Chairman,
Commissioner Hadcock.
move to place Annette Brandt at grade C44, step 12, 2005-0480, with an effective date of February 6, 22.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Roskinick.
move to promote Dustin Lindstrom from Highway Foreman at grade B 32, step 4, $28.17 an hour, effective February the 20th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner LaCroy.
I would move to move Rhonda Scott, custodial maintenance technician, to a B21, step 2 at $17.10 an hour, effective February 6, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn. And a second.
Take that home with you.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.